calls me googly eyes.
You know you're beautiful, right? You know that?
Even you are beautiful. I got bullied for wearing glasses. Share if you're against bullying.
We put it out there, just took off. 3 million people have shared this post. Don't let bullies get you down. I stand with you. My whole family's wearing glasses. I wear glasses and I'm proud.
I even have the army on my team.
All the kind comments brought my child joy. I don't feel thank you is enough.
Thanks.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
I wanted to find a bank with a purpose. I wanted to find a place that would take my money and not use it to cause the financial crisis, but to fix the financial crisis and to help end income inequality.
The people that we employ are usually clients right off the streets. They don't have an account, but Amalgamated is willing to get that started for them.
Their reputation of supporting the working man, I think, speaks for itself. This is a bank that cares for their customers, and I appreciate that.
We were able to access a construction loan through the bank's programs, and that loan has helped us house 28 families in the community.
Amalgamated is a bank that was started for and about working people.
Many of our customers have a deep commitment to advocating for social and economic justice. We share that commitment, and we're not afraid to stand up and say that we need to change some of the way that the country does business.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
Tuesday, May 10. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bill Press Show. Here we are all together again on a Tuesday, May 10. We are here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. You, wherever you are in this great land of ours, you're with us on Free Speech TV and worldwide, all the way around the planet. You're with us on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Great to see you today. Today's a day of the big West Virginia primary. 37 delegates up for Democrats. Hillary Clinton won the state in 2008, but it looks like Bernie Sanders is going to take it away in 2016. Bernie Sanders, by the way, who drew 16,000 people to a huge rally in Sacramento, California. Last evening, Bernie Sanders, after winning West Virginia, goes on to Kentucky and Oregon, and then it is California on June 7. But the big spotlight today, a little bit more on politics. Donald Trump has selected Chris Christie to lead his transition team. He is still in a spat with Paul Ryan and suggested that Paul Ryan, if he doesn't like Donald Trump, then he won't get to chair the Republican convention in Cleveland. And Paul Ryan says if Donald Trump doesn't want him to do so, he will gladly step aside. And Rick Perry suggesting he would be happy to be Donald Trump's vice presidential nominee. Yes, but the big focus again outside of politics on North Carolina, where North Carolina met its deadline yesterday for agreeing not to enforce HB 2, the bathroom law, by suing the federal government. Attorney General Loretta Lynch turned around and countersued North Carolina, accusing them of state-sanctioned discrimination. Yes, indeed, so much to talk about. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS and join the conversation. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Times I've been mistaken for a girl. 1. Ever since I was tall enough to reach the phone perched and mounted against my wall, I was old enough to answer it. And every time I did, I was always greeted by someone on the other end calling me ma'am. And for the longest time, I thought they were saying man because I was cool and hip, man. 2. When entering high school, I found a correlation between girls finding I was cute and long, swishy hair, so I grew my hair out like how optimists never cut their dreams down or how dreamers never trim their hopes short. But this lion's mane became and remained a gender mystery to some store owners asking my girlfriend and I, so, how are you ladies doing tonight? 3. I was always a crier, and with 3 older brothers, manlier and tougher than I, wouldn't it be strange to hear shut up or buck up? Uncomfortably familiar like loneliness, hearing stop being a girl was a terrible mantra that I just got used to, like, I will never amount to anything, or I will die alone. 4. Though very far from the truth, my mom, in her traditional ways, believes gay to be synonymous with effeminate. So wouldn't it be odd for her to question my sexuality due to the clothing I wore or how much I spent on appearances? Why don't you go do boy things? How are you going to take care of your wife? 5, when my father found out that sometimes I like looking at boys, he told my mother that he lost a son, and I can't help but think about my sister, who's 6. My mother always complained about having 4 boys and no daughters. 7, my sister was born in 1991, but 8, died 3 days after her birth due to complications. 9, my mother didn't want to have any children after that, but 10, my father said he had a feeling, and I don't know what that feeling was, but I think it was 11, that he wanted to have another daughter. 12, I didn't come out the way they expected. 13, I think I was a failure before I was even conceived. 3, I was always a crier. 14, I was always so mad at myself for being so sensitive. 15, I wasn't okay to play house with the girls. 16, I was never good at cops and robbers. 17, they called roll and said Alexandria. 0, I was a disappointment before I even began. 12, I didn't come out the way they expected. 12, I didn't come out the way they expected. 12, I didn't come out the way they expected. And now, I'm at some variable of a number, wondering if it still makes a difference. My hair is shorter, my voice is a little deeper, and I still might not do things a boy does. Instead, I do things a person does.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
On your TV and online, this is The Bill Press Show.
All eyes on West Virginia. Bernie Sanders expected to pick up another big win. Hello, everybody. Tuesday, May 10. How about it? What do you say? Great to see you today. Thanks for hopping on board the bus here as we head out from our studio in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill and join up with you everywhere in this great land of ours. There we are. Look around right alongside of you on the radio, on your local progressive talk radio station, and looking right at you on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV. Hello, hello, hello. You're looking good this morning, ready to go with 3 hours of just so much to talk about today. So much happening on many fronts. We got the big battle down in North Carolina now between the state suing the federal government suing North Carolina over the bathroom law. Bathroom police, do you think they're already on duty this morning? Stationed outside of every bathroom, public bathroom in North Carolina. We've got Donald Trump gearing up for the convention, still in a big spat with Paul Ryan, naming Chris Christie to take over the transition. And we've got, again, the big primary in West Virginia. Hillary Clinton is almost conceding she's not going to win tonight. She hasn't been in West Virginia for a while. She's moved on. But Bernie had made a big play, and meanwhile, Bernie was out in Sacramento last night. So we'll take you everywhere there's news today. There's other stuff going on as well. Bring you up to date on it all, and open up the phones, open up the social media for your comments. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show, and join the conversation with Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
What's say, Bill?
Good morning. All right.
Let's do it.
All right. Big field trip yesterday. We'll talk about that, too.
Yes, indeed.
Ray Rogers on the phones, 866-55-PRESS. Cyprian Balding on the video cam, keeping us looking good out there on the TV screen as well. I got to tell you, when half of the press family went to bed last night, the ball game was still on, and one half of the family was, the other half who did not go to bed was not very happy that the Nats were losing to the Tigers. They came back home after being swept by the Cubs.
Yeah.
What was it, 13 innings that game went? Or
yeah, the other
15
night, yeah.
Yeah, no, night before last, right?
Before last, yeah.
But after I had left the scene, Clint Robertson did it. He walked on, did the job. Bottom of the ninth, here's Charlie Slows.
Swing and a high fly ball, right field deep. Martinez going back on the warning track at the wall, and it's gone! Goodbye! Game over! Bang! Zoom goes Clint Robinson! It's a game-winning pinch hit, walk-off, home run in the bottom of the ninth inning!
He's had a couple pretty clutch.
Robinson.
Yeah, he's had a couple clutch appearances this season already, yeah.
He certainly did it, pulled it last night. By the way, it was a crappy night last night. I wouldn't have been sitting out there in that drizzle rain at Nats Stadium. You weren't there, were you?
No, sir, I was not.
Yeah. Anyway, good for the Nats coming back in the winning column, and we got lots going on today. Of course, it's Tuesday, so we'll see if we'll take a look. Here they come, Arthur Delaney and Igor Volsky. And then Dane Strother will be joining us, campaign strategist, one of the best in the country, joining us as our friend of Bill a little bit later in the broadcast. And yes, the battle in North Carolina. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news while we're talking about baseball. Let's go to a different game last night. The Marlins had a player, JT Realmuto, who hit a 2-run home run yesterday afternoon, right?
Yeah, okay.
Good story. Here's the problem, though. As he hit the home run, one of his teammates that was on first base was slow to make it to second because they weren't sure if the ball was going to get caught. So Realmuto ran past him.
Oh, you can't do that.
Which you cannot do. So it was not a 2-run home run. It ended up being an RBI single. So the other ball player was able to go and score, but they kept him at first base because you cannot pass another runner on the field like that, or on the base path. So he got robbed of a home run because he wasn't paying attention. Summer is coming. It means beer, right? Beer is going to flow, hanging outside with your friends. Well, Budweiser would like to change the way that we talk about beer in the summertime. They are lobbying to change their name, the name of their beer, to America. I'm not making this up. Jamie Benson with the hat tip here got this story into me this morning. According to Ad Age, Anheuser-Busch InBev has filed for approval from the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau to put a label on its beer that just says America, e pluribus unum, where it normally says Budweiser, land of the free, home of the brave. And they want to have that on all of their beers this summer.
I still don't understand why that will make people drink beer year-round.
I guess. Look, they're trying to cash in on something.
But
right?
I think America.
Donald Trump's
I think
presidency.
there's a copyright on America.
I would hope so.
I would hope so too. Yes, right.
And yesterday, President Obama.
Well, what did Trump say? Make America great again.
Budweiser great again. Yes. Yesterday, President Obama signed into law the National Bison Legacy Act. It is designed to try and protect bison here in America, and as part of this act, it designates the bison as the official mammal of the United States. We had no official mammal.
No.
We had no official mammal
All this
before
time?
now. All this time. And now
How did we get so far?
the president pointed out that the bison is a uniquely American animal, right? And it joins the bald eagle as one of our national symbols, right? So this is our first.
This is a piece of America I can get behind.
I love bison. Like as an
Yeah.
animal, I just think it's an interesting animal. They're also delicious.
Delicious.
Well, I was just thinking, I had a bison hanger steak not so long ago at Garrison Restaurant right up the street. So if this means I can't have any more bison hanger steak, then I'm against it.
They are not protected in that sense. You can still eat the national mammal.
But
Look, let me tell you something.
You can't eat the national bird.
That's right. Yeah, you cannot have Kentucky Fried Eagle. I tell you what, you sit down with a grilled bison steak and one of those America Budweiser beers, you can't get more patriotic.
I'm telling you, that's right. And an eagle feather in your hair.
That's it.
All right.
That's it.
Oh, yes, indeed. All eyes on North Carolina. That's where we start today. You know what? Give them enough rope and they will hang themselves. But if it were ever true, it's true today in North Carolina. These crazy Bible-pounding, religious, zealot conservatives take over the state legislature and get elected governor, and then they cannot help themselves, right? They just can't help just going over the edge. They get power, and they use it to try to force their religion on everybody else. Their very narrow, twisted, unchristian form of religion, and try to force it on everybody else in the name of God, in the name of religion, and it is blowing up in their face in North Carolina. We've talked so often about this bathroom law, right? Where, remember how it started? The city of Charleston passed a measure, Charlotte passed a measure, a city ordinance that just says you cannot discriminate in the use of you can't discriminate against transgender people in the use of bathrooms. You can't discriminate against anybody, right? But it was particularly aimed to protect transgender people. And the state legislature, so worried, right, that some transgender person might use a bathroom that they didn't think they should use because if they weren't born a man, but they've transgendered or whatever, the transitioned,
yeah.
And then they end up using the ladies' room. Oh, my God. As if this is happening every time you turn around, right? And they passed this HB2, which rushed it through, no hearings, no nothing, rushed it through in one day. And Pat McCrory signed it, governor signed it into law that same day. And it has been hell to pay ever since. So yesterday, the Justice Department said yesterday was the deadline for North Carolina saying, okay, we're not going to enforce this law because it's discriminatory. How did North Carolina meet the deadline? They sued the federal government. Here, and who announced it? Governor Pat McCrory. Here he is yesterday saying that we think that this should not be decided by any legislative body.
We believe a court, rather than a federal agency, should tell our state, our nation, and employers across the country what the law requires.
Right. Now remember, okay, I'm coming back. This is the city of Charlotte with a city ordinance, one city, but the state legislature took it over and said Charlotte cannot do that. No city in Carolina can do that. Now Pat McCrory wants to take it to the next level.
This is now a national issue and an issue which imposes new law on every private sector employer throughout the United States of America with over 15 employees.
So you see what he's doing? I mean, understand, these guys, they're so dumb. What he is saying is we are the party that believes in smaller government, but now we want the national government to take over.
Yeah.
Right. We are the government that believes in states' rights, but now we want the federal government to tell us what to do. It just contradicts everything the Republican Party is supposed to stand for. Don't they get it? And by the way, it is unconstitutional and it is discriminatory. So then the Attorney General, she was ready, man. Loretta Lynch, she was ready yesterday. She came out guns a-blazing and she countersued against North Carolina. Here she is.
We are seeking a court order declaring HB2's restroom restriction impermissibly discriminatory.
She called it state-sanctioned discrimination.
Yeah.
And she compared it to the same. She said, we've seen this before. This is like the Jim Crow laws down in the South. In fact, as the Attorney General said yesterday, there used to be other signs.
It was not so very long ago that states, including North Carolina, had other signs above restrooms, water fountains, and on public accommodations, keeping people out based on a distinction without a difference.
Yep, and there it is. And so now it is all hell to pay. And she further added that the federal government has every right now, every reason to withhold federal funds. It could be $1.4 billion a year that goes to the University of North Carolina, by the way, that North Carolina could lose. And as we know, several businesses have already said they're not going to expand now in North Carolina or maybe move out of the state. And several entertainers, including Bruce Springsteen, Pearl Jam, and a lot of others, have canceled concerts planned in the state. So this is really hurting North Carolina, and it should.
Yeah. I pulled up her some of her statements from yesterday, Loretta Lynch, and this gets to the heart of the whole argument of what government is doing for you, right? Because Republicans try and say government's not doing anything to help us. If you're a transgendered person or you're a confused person or this is something that's you're young and you're not sure what's going on, right? And you don't know how you're going to be accepted. Just really quickly from her comments, she says, quote, "Let me also speak directly to the transgender community itself. Some of you have lived freely for decades. Others of you are still wondering how you could possibly live the lives you were born to lead. But no matter how isolated or scared you might feel today, the Department of Justice and the entire Obama administration wants you to know that we see you, we stand with you, and we will do everything we can to protect you going forward. History is on your side. We'll get there together.
Great. Good for her. Good for her. God bless America. And again, this is just the latest form of discrimination. You know, they just keep coming back and try to treat certain Americans differently just because they're not the same as we are. And it is going to backfire. In fact, there's a great story in Politico this morning that the Republicans now in North Carolina expecting the blowback. And let me just read one quick quote from the senator who is he's for this law, right? And the reality is, this is a state representative. One of the sponsors of the law says, the reality is that HB2 hurts. It doesn't matter that I'm opposed to it or that I've called for its repeal, because the mailer to voters in my race is going to say that I was part of the Republican majority that passed the most discriminatory bill in the state, if not in the nation. And the one who is going to feel the blowback the most is Governor Pat McCrory, who is up for re-election this year against Attorney General Roy Cooper. Now, McCrory's trying to say, hey, this ain't my bill. I didn't have anything to do with it. Oh, yeah? He signed the bill, and yesterday he sued the federal government, and he announced the lawsuit. This is McCrory's baby.
Yeah.
So what do you think? North Carolina, are they finally going to do the right thing and repeal this law, or do you think they'll fight to the death? And what will happen because of it? It is just absolutely, this thing is so one-sided, and they are so dumb. But I got to tell you, proud of the Attorney General stepping up yesterday. She did not hesitate. She was ready to go. And by the way, also kudos to our good friends Moral Mondays down there. Yeah. We'll be right back. Take your calls at 866-55-PRESS.
Follow us on Twitter at BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
Unopening body bags after Typhoon Haiyan. I can only imagine it like unearthing a scab. Zipper breaks open one by one. Mothers trying to dig through themselves an umbilical cord to lend life to a limp ghost. There is not enough relief here to hide the scent of what this child used to be. The coconut trees are not high enough to see over the inside out that was made here. Bags do not have the honor of being called burial plots. Churches ain't supposed to be mausoleums. Tacloban was morphed into ground zero. And I watch this while it snows in Madison, Wisconsin, a place where it's easier to live as a rodent than it is to be a colored person. This place drowns my people in a different way. I inhabit both places like Jigsaw corpse trying to find itself whole. These brown boys in Tacloban aren't my cousins, but I want to carry them to safety. These brown girls in Tacloban aren't my daughters, but I want to tell them they're still growing after this choking, but I'm still an ocean away, a language farther from root, a skin tone lighter than the sand, born there, raised here, home nowhere. To watch this storm is a sorry excuse for mourning. It is to need the sun desperately. It is to realize that your body is in one country while your grief is in another. To look at your house, walk to a river, and come back to no house is to be Filipino. To look at your motherland hurting from a TV screen is to be Filipino American. To watch my islands through the blue eyes of Anderson Cooper is the most American I have ever felt, but I still cry for them, and I still pray for them, because God tried to make them Atlantis before they were ready to be a myth just yet, because rebuilding is the Filipinos' most intrinsic muscle memory, but most painful trauma, because relief is just a word whose Tagalog translation I don't even know, because this poem is all I can give for my country bleeding in salt water. Hail Mary, full of grace, The Lord keeps trying to drown us. Hallowed be thy bodies. Thy kingdom come down in waves and winds on earth as it is destroyed. Take us this day our daily rations, and forgive those who have tried to kill us, as we forgive those who have tried to kill us. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us whose skin has always meant sin now, and at the hour of our death. Amen.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, here we go at 26 minutes after the hour. Talking about North Carolina and the big battle now over HB2. It has reached the federal level after the state of North Carolina sued the federal government yesterday, and the Obama administration turned around and countersued North Carolina and threatened to hold off federal funding. Again, the big mistake I think Republicans are making in North Carolina is, and this doesn't represent, this discrimination, this discriminatory law does not represent the good people of North Carolina. We've said that so many times, it's important to say it again. But what this means is, so the party of a small government, right, has become the party of the bathroom police.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's what government is best at, apparently, is making sure that the right people are using the right bathrooms.
Exactly. This is why we elected these people. I mean, come on. It's just bound to backfire. It's already starting to backfire. It's going to cost the state, in terms of its reputation nationwide, immensely, but also in terms of the bottom line, economic investment in North Carolina. It's really going to cost the state, and in terms of federal dollars going to North Carolina, it's going to cost them as well. I don't see how there's any way that the people of North Carolina don't stand up and throw this bunch of bums out in November, starting with Governor Pat McCrory. And I got to say, this is one time where Donald Trump, again, is not being sucked into this ugly side of the Republican Party. Donald Trump has said that this law is silly. It's unnecessary, it is discriminatory, and that basically, using the common sense approach that I think 99% of people in North Carolina might understand, it's just people ought to use the bathroom that they're comfortable with and the bathroom that's appropriate for them. That's the answer. Repeal HB2.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight, it's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
Enough.
Enough. Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
How about it? The Bill Press Show, 33 minutes after the hour. Here we are on this Tuesday, May 10. We're coming to you live from Washington, D.C., and our studio on Capitol Hill, where we're brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers, the good men and women of the AFT under President Randy Weingarten. Teachers of America making a difference in the classroom every day. You bet. And we salute them for their good work, thank them for their sponsorship of the program, and we welcome to our studio on a Tuesday Arthur Delaney, Huffington Post, and editor of the HuffPost Hill.
Yep.
Arthur, how are you?
Good morning. Yes, HuffPost Hill.
And I hope you know it is only 9 hours, 26 minutes, and 11 seconds from the time coverage of the West Virginia primary starts tonight on CNN. So,
which isn't true, because they'll mention it lots of times between now and
yeah, in other words, they're already starting coverage, right?
Cable news countdown clocks have lost all credibility. People know it doesn't mean anything, or the thing they're counting down to won't actually start at that time. Like with the debate starts at 8.
Yeah.
And then it's really just some other stuff, and then the debate starts at 8:30.
Especially when the countdown clock starts like 36 hours ahead of time.
The American people are tired of this stuff.
I think so.
There is. Arthur
so.
says the American people are tired of. All right. Now, Arthur, I'm very glad you came in today. And what we want to know is, are you going to make news by officially apologizing on behalf of Huffington Post and recognizing to the world that Huffington Post made a grievous mistake in assigning Donald Trump to the entertainment page only? Now that he is the nominee of the Republican Party.
No, it wasn't that egregious. Well, we already wrote, Ariana Huffington already wrote a whole thing about this.
You got it wrong, dude. You got it wrong.
Yeah, we did, like a lot of people, think that he would go away fast. And in that, we were massively wrong.
I think
and me also, individually.
I think history will show that when all the stories are written about underestimating Donald Trump, I'm guilty as well.
Yeah.
All of us are guilty. That the prime example will be Huffington Post saying we're only going to cover him as an entertainment.
We still covered him. The entertainment thing, it was just a question of what color the banner was on the story. Blue for politics, red for entertainment. You had politics reporters filing entertainment stories.
Are you listening to this?
Yeah.
He's still trying to.
I don't feel bad.
Defend it.
Yeah, I'll defend it all the way.
All right. Can you defend the latest jobs report?
Sure.
Or explain it. It wasn't bad. 160,000.
Yeah, a much lower number than people wanted to see.
It always is, isn't it? Lower than people
Yeah,
want.
and some of the other stuff in it was a little unhappy, like the employment to population ratio for prime age workers who are not retiring and should be in the labor force. That number went down a bit because some of those people, for whatever reason, weren't in the labor force, which means they weren't looking for jobs, which is bad.
Right.
But these numbers will get revised twice. The initial report was not that great.
But every time, I forget now how many months in a row this has been. I didn't check this morning, but I mean, this is like maybe 24 months in a row where it's been over
or more than
100,000?
that. Yeah,
more than that. Yeah.
Yeah, and just think
So, I
back
mean,
to
you know,
2009. These reports were a real horror show. When
Exactly.
you had negative 900,000.
Right.
So it's positive. It's a positive
so
jobs
it's,
report.
we've definitely turned the corner a long time ago and continue to move in the right direction.
That's right. But there's still, various measures that have not gotten back to where they were before. And it's this sort of lame new normal we have that might help explain why people are angry, even though that headline number is right around where it should be at 5%.
Do we know, have wages started to tick up?
Not really. And that's another thing that's
one of the big
concerning.
Yeah.
Which suggests that people think that there are more workers essentially on the sidelines, and you don't need to offer people higher wages because positions will be filled by other people willing to take jobs.
Not to overplay the hand of Donald Trump, but this is one area where on the minimum wage, Trump, who at one time said there shouldn't be any minimum wage, I think, or we shouldn't raise it, we couldn't afford it or something. Now, as recently, I think it was yesterday, the day before, he said, I don't see how anybody could live on a wage of $7.25 an hour. It definitely has to go up, but it's up to the states to do it.
That's ridiculous. He said wages are too high. That's the thing he said.
He did at one time, right? But now he's
What is the
becoming
point?
More presidential.
That is ridiculous. What is even the point of taking something he says and spending any time analyzing it when he'll contradict himself the next day? He doesn't have a position on the minimum wage or anything else. He's a birther who says vaccines cause autism. Those are two things that he has been consistent on. So
that's one of the things that's so hard for the media to, like, everyone keeps saying, the media is going really easy on Trump. And I think there's some validity to that as well. But at the same time, it's hard to pin somebody down and knock them down when they will just say the exact opposite of what they said yesterday. right? So if Donald Trump is pro-choice on Wednesday, you ask about that on Thursday, and he'll just lie about it. And what do you do with someone that's lying that blatantly? No one's seen somebody lie quite as artfully as Donald Trump does.
Yeah, well, it's not even artful. It's just so brazen that I guess it's artful in the sense no one knows how to deal with it.
Right.
What do you say when he says, well, I'm for the minimum wage now?
Like I have a young child, right? When he was a little bit younger, there was a time that he kept coming into our room very, very early. And I would say, why are you in our room? And he'd go, I'm not in your room. And I'd say, you're in my room right now. What are you doing? He goes, I'm not in your room. And it's such a blatant lie. I didn't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so blatant and so not true that you, like, where do you even begin to pick that apart?
Are you comparing Magnus to Donald Trump?
A little bit. A little bit.
I think
I hope
bit.
Magnus is not watching.
He would freak out if he knew that.
He would.
Yeah, I think, it's important for him to be called a liar, and that's a word the media won't use. I mean, some media will use, but professional fact checkers, for instance, say, like, oh, pants on fire, Pinocchio, but they won't use the L word.
Well, the thing is that Lion Donald doesn't quite have the same ring as Lion Ted.
Lion Ted.
Lion Ted. All right. When we saw you last, we were anticipating President Obama's visit to Flint, Michigan. He went. What happened?
He was there for several hours, and he drank the water. And this is one thing we wondered if he would do.
Right.
But he actually, the water drinking was less of a stunt and more a part of his core message to people in Flint, which I thought was really interesting. He met with people, and then he had remarks in a gym to about 1,000, mostly Flint residents.
Yeah.
And he wanted to tell them, even though there's been all this news that Flint has been devastated, that Flint kids' brains have been damaged, that their lives are unalterably made worse. People shouldn't take that to heart and just despair that if you take your kid and get his or her blood tested and you're on top of it, kid will be fine. And this is true in the sense that the elevated blood lead levels are known risk factors for like lower IQ points and all these behavioral problems, but it's a risk factor. It doesn't mean that will definitely happen. And if the parents are on the ball and reduce other risk factors, like, you're not smoking in the house, then it's much less likely that these things will be a problem for an individual kid in the future.
Is that what he meant when he said that Flint's glass is half full?
Well, he didn't say that was my riff.
I saw the headline.
Yeah, he had a glass of water. Said,
Oh, I got it.
Apologies for that. But essentially, that's what he was saying. While at the same time he's there, and just being there is a way of bearing witness to the fact that this was a huge tragedy. He, at the same time, is striking a balance, and he doesn't want parents of Flint kids to just totally despair.
He also, I think, in that speech in Flint, laid out, and it's something we talk about a lot on the show, like the need for oversight, the need for government, like what will happen when you have people running around talking about how bad the government is and getting rid of the government and less government. This is what you get. And he really, I think, he didn't try and, hammer that home for political points, but he made that point very clearly. When you need somebody to bail you out of a horrible situation like this, you turn to your government, right? And when you push the government away, this is what you get.
Right. You can't have a bake sale to fund a water system, for example.
Or to recover from a tornado, for
right,
example.
Right.
Yeah. No, government's always your enemy until you need a friend. We've seen that so many times. Arthur Delaney here, our friend from Huffington Post. We'll take a quick break. Be back with Arthur. Join the conversation. Arthur loves to get people who disagree with him from anywhere in the country. 866-55-PRESS.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
For my 6th birthday, my grandpa gave me a Rubik's Cube. I'll always be able to remember its edges, hold it in my hands, heft the weight of an overwhelming problem. I remember him telling me about it. How Rubik's Cube has 43 quintillion, 252 quadrillion, 3 trillion, 274 billion, 489 million, 856,000 possibilities. He told me it can be really confusing sometimes. But to look at the center squares as a reminder of what color each side should be. Shift. We're celebrating his 50th wedding anniversary. He and Grandma are dancing a dance that only fragile legs and wrinkled hands know how to. That type of happiness took him 70 years to earn. The white side of the cube is solved. Shift. He tells me about how he met Grandma. His college friends had a sunset picnic. She was there, as beautiful as an unsolved puzzle. She was a red-headed scramble on an orange tile sky. Shift. The walls of the hospital are blue. The nurses explained that his memories had become jumbled. Strangers in family portraits, pictures with mismatched faces. Alzheimer's has made his mind into a Rubik's Cube. Shift. He's a highway patrolman. His car is white. No, it's blue. He worked there for 30 years. Some nights he still does. Time is a complicated algorithm. Shift. The pills he holds are yellow and red and green. The weight of their color causes his hand to drop. I try to shift his tiles back into place, but people don't have center squares. His mind is a hospital bed divided by 0. Shift. My sister's wedding is white, but he doesn't know why. Shift. World War II is every color. The South Pacific is blue. The islands are green. There is so much red. Shift. Grandpa, table, cube, name, scramble, California, guitar, grapefruit, highway, wedding bell, war, stick shift rifles, South Pacific mirrors. Shift, 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 shift. The temperature of his hands is blue. Death is colorless. I will always remember his edges. Hold him in my hands. Heft the weight of an overwhelming problem. I was unable to attend his funeral. I never found out the algorithm to solve him. A Rubik's Cube has over 43 quintillion possibilities. A casket only has one.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right, now 11 minutes before the top of the hour here with Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post. Arthur, before we move on, we've been talking a little bit about the reception that President Obama got in Flint, which was quite a contrast with the reception received by the governor of Michigan.
Rick Snyder got booed.
Boy, did he ever.
It was like the booing you would see for an opposing sports team. It was such an epic booing by people from Flint. who hate his guts.
Right.
According to the ones I've talked to, that is the reason for the booing, is strong dislike for the governor.
When we talked with a good congressman from Flint, Dan Kildee, last week, he said that they couldn't understand why Snyder wanted to actually speak, because he must have known that he would get booed. He had not been on the program. He insisted he wanted to speak, so they put him up first, and sure enough, the people didn't want to hear him.
Why?
I think it's part of his strategy for getting through this. It's becoming an expert on water regulation and acknowledging that his government blew it, and that he is just going to have to eat a poop sandwich every day until the end of his life in public office. Or he takes a bite of the poop sandwich every day, and that was a big bite.
That's a pretty big bite.
I'm reminded of a month or so ago, I don't know, on CNN when I said this was just caca from Donald Trump or something like that. And Anderson Cooper said, it's been too long on this program since we've heard the word caca. I think it's been too long on this show since we've heard poop sandwich.
Poop sandwich.
Yeah.
Poop sandwich.
Yeah, poop sandwich. Rick Snyder's Deli. Serving them up.
So thank you, Arthur, for raising the level of content here on the Bill Press Show. You and Huffington Post have been talking about Social Security. On the disability benefits, in trouble, in question, what's going on?
The Social Security Administration is doing something that wasn't really announced. Nobody knows about, but they're changing their disability appeals process so that some people who are trying to get benefits, if they can't work because of illness or injury, won't necessarily get to see the same type of judge that anyone else will. So it sounds a little obscure, but it could become controversial. Republicans in Congress have already called a hearing for it. That'll happen on Thursday. But the real problem is that there's more than 1 million people who've applied for disability benefits and don't even know if they're going to get them. And the average wait time is 500 days. So this is a crisis for the 1 million plus people who are at risk of losing their homes or dying while they can't work and wait to find out if they can get like $1,000 a month. From
I was interested in the story because I hadn't heard about this at all, but it reminds me of the problem with the Veterans Administration not so long ago. The long ways for people to even see a doctor.
Right.
Here, it's sort of the same thing. Without these disability benefits, these people are in bad shape, right? And they have to wait average 500 days before they can get a hearing. And
yeah, absolutely, incredible amount of time, more than a year. And we have all these foreign wars, and the Veterans Administration isn't really able to cope with the number of injured veterans. And the Social Security Administration's had its funding cut. They have like 1% of their appropriation is spent on administrative tasks like dealing with this.
And this form of Social Security for disability, it's not age-related, right?
Well, no, but the fact that
you don't have to
the
be
baby boomers... No, anyone who has worked and then can't work anymore...
Because of disability.
Right. If they have to prove their disability, though, and that's what this is all about. It's not an easy thing to do. But because there are more older workers, approaching their 60s, but not quite that old yet.
The number is growing.
Right. The older workers are more likely to have to incur disabilities, and that's why there is this surge of people trying to get these benefits.
So we're just learning about this. Keep on top of it for us, all right? We'll follow it with you.
You bet.
All right. We can count on Arthur. Arthur Delaney and Huffington Post. Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Every day when I was 5, my older sister would play teacher. Her students were me, my stuffed rabbit, and an American Girl doll. She'd line us up at the end of the bed and teach us whatever she'd learned in school that day. Now she teaches ESL at an elementary school in Boston, and every week she tells me stories about her students. Anna does not know how to read in Spanish, much less English, but she still wants to be a writer when she grows up. Juan chooses to stay inside and study at recess so that one day he'll be able to teach his own brother. These kids are good organs in a sick body. In 2001, No Child Left Behind gutted bilingual education. Students who have been in the country for 1 year are now expected to perform at grade level on standardized English tests. My sister is not allowed to instruct them in Spanish. If the kids don't jump high enough, the school loses money. Improving a school by picking its pockets is like tuning a guitar by ripping off the strings. Learning to read in a new language before you can even read in your own is like learning to walk while a pit bull is chasing you, like learning to sing with the conductor's fist down your throat. This year for my sister's birthday, I got books for her students, a poem on one page in Spanish, the next in English. She is not allowed to help them read the first. Their heritage is a banned book. Learning to read in a new language when you can't even read in your own is like trying to heal a burn victim by drowning them. We are telling these children who have spent their whole lives in the deep end that they'll learn how to swim if they just float out a little farther. In the 1980s, American slaughterhouses began building corrals in curves so no animals could see the blood at the end of the tracks. This is how we kept them moving forward. In 2001, we began building the hallways of our schools in curves. This is how we keep them moving forward. You never learn, you fail the test. You never learn, you fail the test. You never learn, you drop out. I know I am lucky enough to be one of the winners of this game. I was handed a head start and a rule book in my own tongue, but the winners of a rigged game should not get to write the rules. On the television, some senator preaches that throwing money at an urban school is like feeding caviar to your dog. They just won't know how to appreciate it. After all, if these parents can't take care of their own children, why should we? Well, tell that to Anna, who has my sister translate newsletters aloud to her father because he too was never taught how to read. Tell that to Juan, whose mother and baby brother are still in Guatemala, whose father works 3 jobs. My sister tells me school is the most stable place in these kids' lives. She has been a teacher since she was smaller than they are. But since when does being a teacher mean having to swear not to help? Since when does being a teacher mean having your hands tied while the schoolhouse burns to the ground? We are leading these children along a track built in circles as their lungs fill with smoke, telling them it is their fault. They can't find a way out.
Dylan Garrity from Slam MN.
Here we go, 3 minutes before the top of the next hour, where we start off with Igor Volsky from Think Progress, and then Scott Wong from The Hill.
Hector Sigala is the social media director for Bernie Sanders, and he wanted to ask his girlfriend to marry him. So he enlisted.
I don't know how he has time during a political campaign.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you know.
He wanted to get married, so he enlisted the help of his boss. Bernie Sanders himself actually helped him pop the question. He put together a video just for this guy, Hector, to show to his girlfriend, Kimberly Riofrio, and said...
Here we go. We can listen to it.
Oh, let's hear it.
Hi, this is Senator Bernie Sanders. When we began this campaign 12 months ago, nobody thought that we would get as far as we have. We have made real progress. Oh, wait a second. Hey, Rio, Hector has a question for you. He's a good guy. Why don't you help him out?
He then dropped to one knee and asked her to marry him, and she said yes.
Isn't that
How
nice?
about Bernie bringing people together?
Yes. You know, this happens. Carol and I met working for Eugene McCarthy at the campaign headquarters, and there we go.
There you go.
Good for you, Hector.
This
Go for it.
is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right, guys, I want to take the last part of the day to change our focus and talk a little bit about water. There's rivers, there's lakes, there's huge oceans. You get thirsty, you just go and you get some water, right? We rely on rain for our water. We even rely on snow. But what if it doesn't rain? What if it doesn't snow? We have to get the word out about water conservation. I want you to tell your parents, your friends, your neighbors, how important it is to save water. It's up to you guys to save the planet. All right? What if it doesn't rain? What if it doesn't snow? We have to get the word out about water conservation. It's up to you guys to save the planet.
Hi, I'm Mark LaFleur, and I produced the short film you just watched called Aqua Force. California is experiencing one of the worst droughts it's ever had, and now, more than ever, it's important for everyone to do their part to help conserve water. The reason I made this film is because I wanted to make something fun and informative that would get people talking about the California drought. Obviously, this is an important issue because we have a limited amount of clean drinking water. I think it was very important to let people know, especially young people, that this is an important resource, maybe our most important resource, and it's something that we can't take for granted and we certainly can't waste. I really wanted this to be something that children would respond to. The kind of thing that any kid anywhere in the world, no matter what language they speak, could understand the story and be entertained by it and leave it knowing that this is something important, that if they didn't already know about this, that it's now going to be a part of the way that they think about water, the way that they live life, and that it's something that they'll share with their friends. The fact that they watch this video once or twice and they immediately understand that water is important, that's it. That was the whole point of this thing, to get it into the conversation, to make it something that kids are thinking about, talking about, that they're aware of, and that they know is important. This project was self-funded, so we relied on the support of our community to make it happen. It was pretty amazing to just have our neighbors, our friends, and our coworkers come together and volunteer their time and their homes and their kids to make this thing happen. Thanks for checking out the video. Keep the Aqua Force going, and thanks for watching Free Speech TV.
The nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All eyes on West Virginia. Hillary won West Virginia over Barack Obama in 2008. This time around, looks like Bernie Sanders. Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday, May 10. Good to see you today, and thank you for joining us, the Bill Press Show. We are here in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill in our studio right down the street from the United States Capitol, but also we're there with you, right alongside of you, coast to coast on the radio and on television on your local progressive talk radio station, of course. Thank you for being with us in Radioland and on Free Speech TV. How about it? You're looking good today. Thanks for joining us. And remember, you're really part of the program. If you jump in the conversation, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Tune in and tell Igor Volsky how wrong he is about everything. Hello, Igor.
Good morning, Bill.
Good
Hi.
morning.
Good to be back.
Here from
yes.
The new deputy director for the Center for American Progress Action Fund.
There you go. Now we have to go to break. No time. The title's so long.
And look who's here, Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Yeah, stop texting. Pay attention.
I was tweeting about your appearance here on the program.
Okay, you can do that.
Hi, Igor. Hi, Bill. Hi, Jamie.
We tell all your fans you're here.
Yes, fans, I'm here.
Yeah.
And
excuse me.
Ray Rogers on the phones, 866-55-PRESS. Remember, and Cyprian Bowling right here, our videographer. That's why we're looking so good this morning. Igor, you missed it yesterday. We all went on a field trip.
Really?
Yes. Well, almost all of us. Cyprian couldn't make it, but Peter and Jamie and Ray and I, we went off down to the E Street Theater for a special advance screening of the new documentary Wiener.
Oh, I want to see that.
It is.
How was it? Was it good?
Incredible.
Fantastic.
Oh, I really want to see
Here's
it.
just a little clip from it, right? The trailer.
It's Republicans wrapping their arms around Republicans rather than doing the right thing on behalf of the heroes.
It was an absolute pleasure to see a Democrat not cowering.
Married to one of Hillary Clinton's closest advisors.
You never back down from anybody.
A photo of an anonymous man's bulging underwear
Was tweeted from Congressman Wiener's account.
Today I am announcing my resignation from Congress.
It goes on and on. What's amazing about it, right, is so this guy, he and his wife get over the first tweets and resigning from Congress, and they come together and they agree his career in politics is not over, and she encourages him and backs him up that he's going to run for mayor, and he invites this documentary team to to follow him and her everywhere at every moment during his mayoral campaign. And of course, then it all blows up because it finds out he's still been texting
I am
photos.
really into these Fall from Grace stories.
They are. This is one of the more amazing documentaries I've ever seen. If you like the really behind the scenes,
Yes, I do.
I mean, I'm not ruining anything. There's a moment in the movie where the filmmaker just asks Anthony Wiener, "Why are you letting me film this?"
Yeah.
Because it is so personal and so awkward and just cringy.
It
at
is.
points.
It is like, why you keep asking, why is he letting them do this, and you keep asking, why is she letting them do this?
Huma.
Because Huma.
What's in it for them with this documentary now?
You tell me.
I don't know.
I can't figure that out. Nothing is the answer. But it's very powerful. And it's released, general release, what, next week?
End of May.
End of May.
May 25th.
Okay. I'm sure it won't be everywhere in the country
Yeah.
because maybe it won't have that broad an appeal. But certainly, I got to tell you, in New York and Washington.
Oh, yeah. No. It'll be
I
big.
think anywhere in the country to see a very gifted politician and a guy who is tremendous on the issues and probably the best debater on the floor of the House just totally collapse.
And it's funny how I personally had forgotten how effective he was. I mean, he was in your face.
Oh.
And as a Democrat, that was something that a lot of people hadn't seen.
And you remember those Fox News appearances?
Oh,
did?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Screaming matches.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, he would take on like Peter King and these guys. He was.
What's he doing now, by the way? Do we know?
He writes some stuff. He's doing some fill-in radio work. I saw him doing some fill-in radio work recently.
Oh,
yeah.
I know.
He's down here on the level of us degenerates now.
All right. So we just want to say, go see it. Go see it. It's great. And here with Igor for the first half hour, Scott Wong from The Hill joins us at the half, and we'll get right into starting with North Carolina, Igor. But first.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We go to the NBA, where we had some basketball last night. The Miami Heat taking on the Toronto Raptors. That game went to overtime in Game 4, but saw the Heat win that 94-87. That series is now tied at 2 games apiece. And we saw the return of Steph Curry last night for the Golden State Warriors. That game also went to overtime, but the Warriors pulled that out 132-125. Steph Curry scored 40 points last night and set a record by scoring 17 points in overtime. A remarkable performance from this year's MVP.
Hey, Igor, what was your favorite part of the game last night?
Yeah, what was your favorite part? The end of the game. Yes, all right. Chef Gordon Ramsay was speaking at a food conference called Vegas Uncorked earlier this week, and he said about a month ago, he was in one of his restaurants, and the maitre d' came up to him and said, there's a couple at table 7, they're celebrating their engagement. Could you go over and say hello to them? So Chef Ramsay goes out with 2 glasses of champagne, congratulates them, and then finds out that the man hadn't popped the question yet.
Oh.
So
it wasn't their engagement.
Yes, they were going to. They were going to.
I got it.
The man had told the maitre d' he's going to propose. The maitre d' then told Gordon Ramsay, who went before he actually proposed at dinner.
Yeah, the timing is really key.
Really crucial there. Ramsay, who is known for having explosive temper,
flip the table.
Well, he said, I took the maitre d' back into the kitchen and we had words. So I can only imagine how bad that went. And if
a couple had words too.
I'm sure they had a couple things to say. Yes, indeed. Krispy Kreme. We love Krispy Kreme donuts, right? Donuts and coffee. They were actually bought out yesterday by the same company that owns Stumptown Coffee, Keurig Coffee. They're sort of a coffee conglomerate now. They also own Pete's Coffee. The JAB Holding is the name of the company, and they bought Krispy Kreme for $1.35 billion yesterday. They now own $14 billion worth of coffee companies.
Okay. All right. They're not as good as District Donuts.
No, they're not.
Down the street. They're the best.
They have the best donuts in the donut chain game.
Yeah.
Krispy Kreme.
What is, when we know the latest on North Carolina, Igor, with Governor McCrory yesterday, it was a deadline to respond on whether or not North Carolina is going to enforce this bathroom law, and he said, their response was, we're going to sue.
We're going to sue because we think that your interpretation of the Civil Rights Act is too wide. It's too expansive. It doesn't include gender expression, they say. It only includes sex. And that's why they think that the president is acting without Congress in interpreting the law as such. Now, the amazing thing is, so now they have these two lawsuits, right? So you have the federal government suing North Carolina, saying they're violating the Civil Rights Act.
And now?
North Carolina suing the federal government, saying their interpretation is just plain wrong. If you've ever watched the governor of North Carolina on any of the Sunday talk shows, now he did meet the press, I think 2 weeks ago, and he did Fox News Sunday just last weekend. They obliterate him. They ask him things he has no answer to. And he's not prepared either, which is really shocking. But he cannot defend this law. And people who've known him and who followed his career as mayor of Charlotte and now as governor always thought of him as this like pragmatic, moderate, business-oriented guy. So the fact that he's now in bed with these social conservatives and fighting this really on the national stage is kind of shocking to me.
But yeah, and also the fact that it contradicts everything the Republican Party says it stands for when you listen to him, right? So this party of small government has become the party of bathroom police.
Bathroom police, yes, and saying that a city can't pass the kind of ordinance it wants to pass.
Right, exactly. So the party of small government or local government or state rights has now become the party of, no, this has to be settled on the national level, right? We have to have the federal government come in and tell us what our bathroom policies are. I mean, this is one case where I think Donald Trump has it absolutely right. Just let them use whatever bathroom they think is appropriate, right?
And Loretta Lynch, who's usually, kind of very buttoned up and very kind of in legal speak, was really passionate and emotional, saying that this just isn't right. This is the civil rights struggle of our time.
I was just going to get that. Here is Loretta Lynch yesterday, and she equated this to the Jim Crow laws not so long ago.
Yeah. It was not so very long ago that states, including North Carolina, had other signs above restrooms, water fountains, and on public accommodations, keeping people out based on a distinction without a difference.
We were talking a little bit earlier, off the air, I think, actually, but I find this very, very important and very interesting, is that it wasn't so long ago when I remember making the case that discrimination against the LGBT community was today's version of the civil rights struggles. And there's a lot of pushback from the black community at the time saying, no, do not equate the two. No, totally different. Loretta Lynch went right there. I mean, today she is saying this is discrimination today, and it's against transgender people.
And when Chris Wallace asked the governor, what would you say if this was a law that was prohibiting black people from using the same restrooms as white people? Isn't that discriminatory? And he said something like, well, you can't change race, but there's gender stuff. I mean, we just don't know. We just don't know.
It's a switch. You can turn it on and off.
Exactly, like your lights.
So the big question now, I think, is the political blowback in North Carolina, because McCrory's up for re-election.
He is.
Roy Cooper, the Attorney General of North Carolina, making this a big issue, as he should. Good guy. And Republicans in the legislature, a lot of them quoted in Politico this morning, Republicans who supported this law are worried that it's going to blow back in their face and they could lose the legislature and lose the governorship.
And it's a big cost to the state. It's not just these big-name concerts like Springsteen and others canceling. It's also Pearl Jam, but it's also the businesses that are kind of quietly not coming to North Carolina, not relocating North Carolina. Not expanding, not holding conferences in North Carolina. And for someone who is from the business world and rose through politics based on those business credentials, that's a big problem.
The convention and visitors bureaus of different states are big business that we don't necessarily see unless we're part of a convention or a conference that goes somewhere. But you're right. Those are the ones that really will have a huge impact, because places like, New Orleans and Atlanta, these places that have these big conferences that people go to. Charlotte is another really big one. like for companies to go to conferences and conventions and things like that. So if they're pulling out that money, they really will feel that.
But, it's really, on one hand, kind of a testament to how far we've come. The fact that the law like this passes and you see this kind of national backlash. I mean, you remember in 2004 when you had a slate of anti-LG marriage equality laws,
11
discriminatory marriage, 11 of them, every one of them passed. And you kind of had this shrug by folks in the national media, by Democrats who said, oh, well, country's just not there. You can't do anything. This is a different world.
Right.
And I think other states are really unnoticed. They can't go down this road.
Right. One would hope. Unfortunately, Mississippi already has. The other thing, just a final point before we take a break, is in terms of economic impact, that Loretta Lynch did say yesterday the federal government now has every right and maybe a duty to withhold federal dollars from North Carolina because they are a state that is discriminating and violating the Constitution.
And the state schools are saying, we're going to follow federal law on this one. Yes.
Crazy. McCrory, get him out of there. All right. Igor, when we come back, Donald Trump, it's hard to know where he stands on some issues.
I just don't know.
Flip-flopping around.
He might change by the time we come back from break. Let's hurry up.
We'll check in during the break. Igor Volsky here with us, 866-55-PRESS. Your ticket. We'll be right back.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where the ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
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 How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 25 minutes now after the hour. Scott Wong from The Hill. Big story today about all the ways that Paul Ryan and Donald Trump disagree. He'll join us in studio.
That's a long article.
We were talking about the Wiener documentary.
Yeah. We actually got a comment about this on Twitter where we're tweeting at BP Show. Jim Irwin says, it still baffles me the double standards for Republicans as Wiener was kicked out while David Vitter was still in the U.S. Senate.
By the way, absolutely. And the other thing is that with all these women that he might have been texting with, Anthony Weiner never met one of them.
Yeah.
It was all online. I mean, it was all,
I would also see a
on the
documentary
phone.
about David Vitter. I'm just saying.
I would watch that
anyone
documentary
wants
as
to
well.
make
Absolutely.
That,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
ready.
So where does Donald Trump stand on the minimum wage?
I don't know. I mean, he said during the primary that he thinks people actually pay too much, make too much money. Then
wages are too high.
Wages are too high. Too damn high. Then a couple of days ago, he said, the middle class is just being screwed. We need to raise the minimum wage. And then just yesterday, he said, well, let's leave it up to the states. So nobody...
And I can't believe anybody could make it.
I can't believe anyone could live on $725.
Which is true.
An hour. So it's very unclear. He's clearly in this phase of his campaign where he's trying to move in some kind of direction, but there's this real sense of just grave uncertainty of where will Donald Trump land, A, by the time they write their platform, and B, in the midst of when we really enter the general election. And which Donald Trump do you believe? The Donald Trump of the primary or the Donald Trump of the general? I don't know.
There are also issues on which, and we're going to be talking with Scott Wong about this, where he is being asked to move, like by Paul Ryan, for example, on the trade deals.
Yes.
I mean, Paul Ryan supports TPP. There would be no TPP if it weren't for John Boehner and Paul Ryan. Donald Trump, of course, is against it. Is he likely to change on those issues as well?
Trade, no. Trade is a real winning issue for Donald and for the Republican base. It's a place where Paul Ryan is really out of step. The other place is taxes. Now, Trump had a bit of a scuffle there where he said that the rich should pay more in taxes. It departs dramatically from his tax cut plan that gives the rich a huge tax cut. He later clarified that they shouldn't be paying more than they pay now. They should be paying more than he had originally proposed in his plan. And of course, also a big contrast with Paul Ryan, who would support a cut that gives a tax break to all of the different brackets, simplifies those brackets, but the most relief would go to the top earners.
So Trump is in the position, do you think, of saying, okay, now here's how I won the primary. Now I've got to adjust my views and positions in order to win the general?
I guess. Does he think of it that way? Does he think ahead? I don't know. I don't know what he thinks. It's just all very bizarre.
No, that is a good question.
Who knows?
Does he ever take time to sit down and really plot things out, or just right?
Just on the fly.
Great
Makes
to
it
see
all
you,
up.
Igor.
Good to see
Thanks
you.
for coming in,
This
as always.
is the Bill Press Show.
I have have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Can't catch the entire show? Listen to BP in 3, where we turn 3 hours into 3 minutes. Find it every day at BP Show on Twitter or at BillPressShow.com.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour of the Bill Press Show, live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., brought to you today by Amalgamated Bank. Yeah, you hear the phrase, a bank with progressive values. May sound like a contradiction in terms, but it's not. For nearly a century, Amalgamated's been the first choice bank of progressive organizations and individuals nationwide. And you can join them as well. Very seldom do you walk into a brick and mortar bank anymore. You do all your banking online, and you can bank online at Amalgamated, amalgamatedbank.com, and be a proud progressive at the same time. Well, big doings this week when Donald Trump comes to town. to sit down and smoke the peace pipe, maybe, or try to, with Paul Ryan. Scott Wong covers the Hill for the Hill, right. I guess. Yes, exactly.
And I live on the Hill too.
There you go.
Man, you are a Hillite in many levels. Scott, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Good to see you.
So, big meeting on Thursday. Where and when? What's the story here?
So, Donald Trump will be back in D.C. on Thursday. He'll be heading to the RNC headquarters for meetings with Paul Ryan.
Which are just down the street from the Capitol, right?
Which are literally next door to the Capitol, so that lawmakers can run back and forth and make fundraising phone calls.
Right.
But Trump will be back on the Hill at the RNC, meetings with Paul Ryan and his leadership team, a separate meeting with Mitch McConnell and his leadership team, and then a meeting with just Paul Ryan and Reince Priebus. And I think that the reason why that's significant is because Donald Trump and Paul Ryan had a little bit of a war of words over the weekend regarding whether or not Paul Ryan could come around and support his candidacy.
Well, Ryan went out of his way to say he's not there yet, right? In fact, Jamie, we got that yesterday, wasn't it? Ryan saying we just haven't gotten to know each other yet.
We just don't know each other. And I don't want to make this about me. This is about our party, its core principles, and our need to unify it.
All right. It was June 16 of last year that Donald Trump, who was hardly, by the way, unknown before then, right, announced that he was running for president. What do you mean Paul Ryan doesn't know him? And how many debates have they had? 15 debates or so?
Well, I think he knows him like how we know Donald Trump, a reality TV star. People think they know him. They see him on TV. But in terms of the personal interaction, there hasn't been a whole lot. Ryan said maybe he's met him once or twice in his life, very briefly. I think it was on the 2012 campaign trail when he was with Mitt Romney. And so there isn't a personal relationship there. Of course, Paul Ryan is the consummate Washington, D.C. insider, has, been essentially came up in the system here in D.C. and Donald Trump is running as an outsider.
He's a nerd.
He's a policy wonk, and he'll admit that.
Mm-hmm. Right. So why aren't they meeting in? I'm surprised they're meeting at the RNC and not in Ryan's office. I mean, usually.
Well, earlier this year, Donald Trump did come to have meetings with Priebus, and Trump brought his political team for that meeting, and they kind of snuck him through the back door. He briefly waved to the TV cameras that had assembled just outside Tortilla Coast there. But it's a much more controlled environment. And if Donald Trump came to the Capitol where reporters, literally dozens of reporters roam freely, it would be a free-for-all and very chaotic. And I think the Trump people want a very controlled environment.
I imagine Paul Ryan does too.
I would imagine that's the case as well.
Yeah. Okay. So then, after Paul Ryan says, "I'm not sure. I'm not ready to support him yet," and Donald Trump says, "I was blindsided, so maybe he won't be the chair of the convention after all." Is the speaker automatically the chair?
Traditionally, it has been the case that the leader in the House is the chair of the convention. It's mostly a ceremonial role. They'll open the convention up and preside over certain moments of it. What we had been talking about earlier this year is a contested convention, and what that would have meant for Paul Ryan kind of controlling this very chaotic scene. But that's no longer the case. The other candidates have all dropped out. Donald Trump is the expected nominee, and so this is still a very ceremonial role, but still it says something when the person in that chair is saying, well, maybe I can't support this guy.
And so, again, Jamie, Paul Ryan was asked yesterday in an interview with the Milwaukee Sentinel about, so what if Donald Trump doesn't want you?
You to step down as chair of the convention, would you? I'll do whatever he's the nominee. I'll do whatever he wants.
So it's sort of like, yes, Mr. Trump, whatever you want. Yes, Mr. Trump. No doubt about who's in charge here, it seems.
Well, I did see, after the very heated rhetoric that came out of the weekend and last week, I did see yesterday as sort of a cooling off period. The two sides trying to reconcile before this big meeting on Thursday. I think both sides realized that that it wasn't helpful to the party to have, the front page of every newspaper showing Paul Ryan and Donald Trump feuding, although there is a very real, civil war happening within the party. But I think both sides do have a common goal, and that is to ensure that a Democrat is not in the White House next year.
If Trump, as the presumptive nominee, can he appoint somebody else to chair the convention? And any talk about who that could be?
Sarah
Palin.
I have a feeling this Paul Manafort guy is going to factor in somewhere, right? Like, he just seems to be the guy that's going to try
picking somebody.
Picking somebody.
Well, I think it would have to go through a very complicated rules process. I think the best
there is a rules committee that it's two people from each state. I was reading this morning that would decide. But Trump could probably say, "Here's the person I want." It would be hard for them to say no.
Right. I mean, Trump has a lot of power now that he's essentially the nominee, and so there is a process for that to happen. But I think the way things are looking is, Paul Ryan probably will remain as chair. I talked to a number of lawmakers yesterday who said they expect Paul Ryan to come around. I see that as a big challenge for him, given some of the things that he's said about Trump and specifically the comments about a ban on Muslims, about building a wall across the entire U.S.-Mexico border. These are things that are hard to reconcile.
But would be awfully difficult for the Speaker of the House of Representatives not to support the nominee of his own party.
I mean, that would be a huge statement. I think it would be unprecedented in history. I don't know if we've, at least in modern times, have ever seen such a scenario.
Right. Okay. Now you have in the Hill sort of laid out why it would be difficult for these two men to come together. You just alluded to a little bit. On that, there are at least 10 different issues on which they are far apart. Right? I mean, so coming together for them is a long road. Yeah. Right.
So
let's start with trade, for example.
Okay. Yeah. Mike Lillis, my colleague, and I ticked through 10 major issues where Paul Ryan and Donald Trump are essentially on opposite sides of these issues. Yeah. Trade is not even close. Trade is a huge one. I mean, Ryan is a huge pro-trade guy on Capitol Hill. He, as Ways and Means Committee chairman, led the fast-track TPA effort last year, and wrote, editorials in the Wall Street Journal supporting trade. Now he's a little bit more cautious when it comes to the actual trade agreement that President Obama is negotiating, but in terms of fast-tracking it, giving Obama authority to negotiate it, he was the big cheerleader. Yeah,
President Obama would not have a TPA fast-track if it were not for Paul Ryan.
Right. Paul Ryan was there twisting arms, cajoling, talking to members. He was essentially leading the whip effort on the Republican side for TPA.
And that's one issue where Donald Trump is not going to...
And Donald Trump was on the opposite side of that. He's opposed to trade. He said it's going to hurt American jobs. And in part, that's what's propelled him in some of these Rust Belt states that have been struggling with manufacturing. And so that's a huge disparity.
On that one, Donald Trump is not going to change. On TPA or NAFTA?
Donald Trump has changed his tune on a number of issues. That is a very difficult one. I mean, he's just come out so strong in opposition to trade.
All right, we'll take a look at some of the others. Paul Ryan, Donald Trump here with Scott Wong from The Hill, thehill.com. And take a quick break. By the way, I have a column in The Hill today about this dilemma a lot of Republicans are facing, which is whether or not even to support the nominee of their party. We'll take a look at that. We'll be right back with Scott Wong.
Your place to talk about the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
"21. My father is run over by a car. He's passed out in the road with a blood alcohol content 4 times the legal limit. I do not cry. 4 months later, the nurses lose his pulse, and I wonder whose life flashed before his eyes. Rewinding VHS tapes, old home videos. 20. 19, I haven't brought a friend home in 4 years. 18, my mother sips the word divorce. Her mouth curls at the taste like it burns going down. 17, I start doing homework at Starbucks. I have more meaningful conversations with the barista than with my family. 16, I wait for Christmas Eve. My brother and I usually exchange gifts to one another early. This year, he and my father exchange blows. My mother doesn't go to Mass. 15, I come up with the theory that my father started drinking again because maybe he found out I'm gay. Like, if he could make everything else blurry, maybe somehow I'd look straight. 15. My mother cleans up his vomit in the middle of the night and cooks breakfast in the morning like she hasn't lost her appetite. 15. I blame myself. 15. My brother blames everyone else. 15. My mother blames the dog. 15. Super Bowl Sunday, my father bursts through the door like an avalanche, picking up speed and debris as he falls. Banisters, coffee tables, picture frames, tumbling, stumbling. I find his AA chip on the kitchen counter. 14. My father's been sober for 10, maybe 11 years. I just know we don't even think about it anymore. 13. 12. 11, Mom tells me Daddy's meetings are for AA. She asks if I know what that means. I don't. I nod anyway. 10. My parents never drink wine at family gatherings. All my other aunts and uncles do. I get distracted by the TV and forget to ask why. 9. 8. 7. 6. I want to be Spider-Man. Or my dad. They're kind of the same. 5. 4. 3. I have a nightmare. The recurring one about Ursula from The Little Mermaid. So I get up. I waddle toward Mommy and Daddy's room, blankie in hand. I pause. Daddy's standing in his underwear, silhouetted by a refrigerator light. He raises a bottle to his lips. 2. 1. 0. When my mother was pregnant with me, I wonder if she hoped, as so many mothers do, that her baby boy would grow up to be just like his father.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right, now at 12 minutes before the top of the hour, here with Scott Wong from The Hill, Democratic strategist Jane Strother here as a friend of Bill for the next hour. Scott, we've been talking about the issues in which Donald Trump and Paul Ryan would have a hard time coming together. The two, perhaps, that Donald Trump is most famous for, or infamous for, one, we're going to build a wall. We're going to build a wall along the entire southern border, and we're going to make Mexico pay for it. Not exactly Paul Ryan's approach.
That hasn't been Paul Ryan's message, especially after the RNC autopsy report from 2012. There was a moment of self-reflection where the Republicans said, why did we lose this election to Barack Obama, who was very unpopular at the time? And so Paul Ryan has been somebody, he's a Jack Kemp Republican. He's somebody who's had a very optimistic message, a more inclusive message. Let's bring people into the fold. Let's bring minorities, the middle class, working folks. And Donald Trump comes along and says, Mexican immigrants are rapists, and let's build a giant wall across the border. So very difficult to see those guys seeing eye to eye on the issue of immigration.
And again, hard to believe that Donald Trump could back away from that one. I mean, that's become his signature issues. And the other one is banning all Muslims from the United States. Again, not something you'd hear from Paul Ryan.
Right. In fact, when Donald Trump came out with his proposal, kind of a half-hearted proposal, just something he floated out there saying, let's ban Muslims from entering the United States. This was in the wake, I think, of San Bernardino. Paul Ryan stepped in front of the microphones and cameras at the RNC just down the street and condemned that proposal. And we've seen Ryan step in on various occasions when he thinks that Trump has just taken things a bit too far. He stepped in and said, this is not what the Republican Party stands for.
Right. A new look at Cuba?
I'm not as familiar on the Cuba issue, but I think...
But certainly Trump has said, yeah, makes sense to me. We ought to be doing business. He sees that as a businessman, right?
Right.
And Paul Ryan is still of the old school. We can't do anything down there until Castro dies, right?
Right. I mean, this is one of President Obama's signature policy changes in the past year, and so Ryan and most Republicans on Capitol Hill, nearly all of them, have come out in opposition to the Cuba policy and opening up trade and diplomatic relations with Cuba. And Donald Trump has said, well, I'm certainly open to it, and this might be a good thing.
Right. Taxes is the area is going to go next because again, the Republican sort of playbook is cut taxes on the wealthy, so that all trickle down to people, and Donald Trump is saying just the opposite. No, and the wealthy should pay more.
No, Paul Ryan has been
So is Donald Trump a Republican or a Democrat?
I think a lot of Republicans are scratching their heads and asking themselves that question. Now, look, Bill Bennett he's out with a new podcast just yesterday, and
Bill Bennett,
yeah. Former education secretary.
Yeah, 100 years ago.
Also, well, he's a close friend of Paul Ryan. In fact, he's one of Paul Ryan's political mentors. It was Bill Bennett and Jack Kemp, and so Bill Bennett was on his podcast yesterday and said, I think they speak frequently. He speaks with the speaker very frequently, and he said, I think this meeting this meeting between Trump and Ryan later this week. They're not going to agree on specific policies, but I think what Ryan's looking for is an agreement on principles. And I think, one of those principles certainly is inclusivity. But again, an agreement on principles with Donald Trump is going to be very challenging given his past statements on Muslims, on immigration, on a range of issues.
And what about Mitch McConnell?
Mitch McConnell...
He hasn't exactly endorsed, has he?
Well, he did endorse. He did endorse.
Well, wasn't it sort of,
but
of course I will support the nominee of my party?
Right. It was so quiet that most people missed it, I think. He did. And a lot of Republicans have sort of been in that boat. Very reluctant, critical of a lot of Donald Trump's past statements, and yet saying, I'll support the nominee. In fact, a lot of them are endorsing without naming Donald Trump. I will support the nominee.
The nominee. Yeah. That's one way around it.
Finally, and very quickly, Ted Cruz is back this week to the Senate.
Right.
How's he going to be received?
Right. Well, he's not exactly everyone's best friend in the Senate. So
there's the understatement of the day.
I remember a couple months ago when Rubio came back to the Senate for the first time after the campaign trail. his staff was applauding. There's a video of him applauding. They posted it on the internet. I don't think Cruz is going to be received in quite the same way.
All right, Scott. What a fun job you've got. All right, and what a great job you're doing. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Tell you what the president's up to next.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where the ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get fire adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine.
Virginia Tech.
Tucson.
Aurora.
Fort Hood. Oak Creek.
Newtown.
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 How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls? How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough. Enough. Enough.
Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 Hey, we really have a big third hour coming up, so get ready for it. Remember, you're going to have to wait around on Free Speech TV until 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 Central, 2 Pacific. But you can catch the third hour right away on our video stream, youtube.com/Talker, TawkrTV. And in the third hour, Democratic strategist Dane Strother will be here for the entire hour as a friend of Bill, and then Zach Ford will be coming in from the Center for American Progress and the Think Progress team, joining us in studio. So stay around. See you then.
This is the Bill Press Show.
President Obama today meeting with the National Security Council at 10 this morning. And then this afternoon, he welcomes back to the White House the Yukon Huskies, the women's team. I mean, I don't know, 8 years in a row, maybe?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, he knows them all pretty well by now.
I think he does, right? He's part of the team. And our briefing with Josh Earnest today at 12:30, which I will miss because I'll be on a train to New York to join election coverage, West Virginia primary. Starting my turn, at least, starting at 10 o'clock with Don Lemon tonight on CNN. I will see you there, and I'll see you right back here with Democratic strategist Dane Strother, a friend of Bill, for the next hour.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right.
I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Calls me googly eyes.
You know you're beautiful, right? You know that?
Even you are beautiful. I got bullied for wearing glasses. Share if you're against bullying.
We put it out there, just took off. 3 million people have shared this post. Don't let bullies get you down. I stand with you. The whole family's wearing glasses. I wear glasses and I'm proud.
I even have the army on my team.
All the kind comments brought my child joy. I don't feel thank you is enough.
That's
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where the ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
I wanted to find a bank with a purpose. I wanted to find a place that would take my money and not use it to cause the financial crisis, but to fix the financial crisis and to help end income inequality.
The people that we employ are usually clients right off the streets. They don't have an account, but Amalgamated is willing to get that started for them.
Their reputation supporting the working man, I think, speaks for itself. This is a bank that cares for their customers, and I appreciate that.
We were able to access a construction loan through the bank's programs, and that loan has helped us house 28 families in the community.
Amalgamated is a bank that was started for and about working people.
Many of our customers have a deep commitment to advocating for social and economic justice. We share that commitment, and we're not afraid to stand up and say that we need to change some of the way that the country does business.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Tuesday, May 10, West Virginia primary in 2008. It was Hillary Clinton. Tonight, it looks like a Bernie win. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio right here on Capitol Hill. Good to have you with us today. Lots to talk about. Yes, the West Virginia primary. North Carolina legislators and the governor really in the hot seat today after the Attorney General suing North Carolina for what she called state-sanctioned discrimination yesterday. Lots going on, and we will cover it all here on this hour of the Bill Press Show. Remember, we want to hear from you. Don't just sit back and listen to what's going on. You tell us what it all means to you, and do so by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. You can send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Say hello to our team here with me this morning, Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson, as always.
Good to see you.
All right.
Happy Tuesday.
Yep, here we go. Winding up with Ray Rogers, too. She's here to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding has the lights and the cameras on and keeping us looking good on the video. And we welcome to the studio, good friend of ours, haven't seen him in a while, back as a friend of Bill for the entire hour, Democratic strategist Dane Strother. Hello, Dane. Dane.
Hello, Bill. I've been called worse than Dwayne.
Good to see you. How about it?
Redneck Radio rides again.
It is good to be here, and I've decided to do this entire hour in a Southern accent.
Are you pandering to West Virginia voters?
No, I'm just talking about below the Smith and Wesson line. I want them to understand me.
That's the two of you now. I feel a little outnumbered here.
You're outnumbered, man.
Although I'm from Delaware, which is technically below the Mason-Dixon line.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, there you go. So a fun fact.
Although I'm from northern Delaware.
Is Delaware below the Mason-Dixon line?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Part of it is.
Okay.
Part of it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So they park their pickup trucks at the line.
Right.
And they Uber up north.
And a lot of people are confused. They're surprised there is a northern Delaware and a southern Delaware. It's so small. Right.
The carpet changes.
But there is, and there's a big change. We do have some breaking news here right at the top of the hour. Peter?
From the White House, statement
from the White House
by the press secretary on the president's travels to Vietnam and Japan. The itinerary is set. May 21 through 28, it will be his 10th trip to Asia. I mentioned Vietnam. He's going to start there. He's going to first visit Vietnam and then move on to Japan. Interesting, the last sentence of this release. Finally, the president will make a historic visit to Hiroshima with Prime Minister Abe to highlight his continued commitment to pursuing the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
A lot of talk, a lot of discussion about whether or not he should go. Absolutely, I think he should, and I'm glad he's going.
Yeah.
Dane?
No question at all. We should never remember just how horrific these weapons are. Never forget. Sorry.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. I always remember. Yeah.
And that will be the president's message, I think. You know, it's not going to say, we're sorry we dropped the bomb, but this should never happen again. We should get rid of these weapons entirely. So good for him. Now, Dane, this West Virginia primary today, it's hard to get our attention away from it. And it's important to get out and vote. Everybody says that, except Donald Trump, right?
I love it.
Last week, who said, hey, why vote? Save your vote for the general election. You don't have to vote in the primary. Stephen Colbert last night had a little fun with that.
Now that Donald Trump is the presumptive GOP nominee, tomorrow's West Virginia primary is not exactly crucial. But that did not stop him from holding a rally there on Thursday to remind everyone of their important role in the democratic process.
You know, you don't have to vote anymore. Save your vote for the general election, okay? Forget this one. The primary's gone.
Yes. It's an inspiring message. It reminds me of Patrick Henry's immortal battle cry, give me liberty or don't. Forget this one. I don't give a crap. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Save your vote.
Yeah. Vote or don't vote. Who cares, right? Yeah. What a message coming from the nominee. But what do you expect from the Donald Trump? You never know what to expect from a Donald Trump, do you?
No, absolutely not. He hasn't thought these things through. Look, he's not.
Does he ever think things through?
Well, but then he'll rethink them, right? Right? If you don't like where he is, give it 15 minutes. He'll be where you want him to be.
He's just like a free-form artist, right? Like I'm reminded of when Apple said they weren't going to open up the phones, the encryption for the phones. And he said, well, let's boycott Apple, just from stage. He goes, I just thought of that. Let's just boycott Apple. And then he sends out all of these tweets from his iPhone or his iPad, and they're collecting credit card information to buy things at the store on iPads at his location, right? So he just says these things. He doesn't think about what actually follows.
Right. No. Have you ever seen a candidate like him?
Oh, no. No. I mean, I'm not even sure what to say, right? No, I'm not seeing a person like him. What are you talking about? NBC had to create this luster of success, right? And they created this person,
right?
And there's no underpinnings whatsoever. Look, you expect him on any given day to say, "All right, joke's on you. I'm back to what I was doing," right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. That if only. If only.
Well, yeah, but otherwise we might end up with somebody we can't beat. So, you know.
So, Dane here with us for the first half hour. We're going to be joined by Zach Ford from Center for American Progress at the half hour as well. We'll get right into it. But first, Peter always starts off with the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. There is a new story in the CBC that talks about Canadian nudist colonies, right? You haven't heard about nudist colonies in a long time because they are having a really big problem attracting new members. They say that nudity and going to nudist camps, nudist colonies, is not all that appealing to millennials. And so they're trying to figure out how to bring more people in to these nudist camps because they said everybody there is.
Did you say this is out of Canada?
This is in Canada.
Well, it's too cold.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, that might be why.
First thing that came to my mind.
Yeah.
But they say that the numbers are fine with people like 60 and above. They just can't
the
get
last
people.
ones you want to see nude.
That's exactly. Right. That's how it always goes. But they're trying to figure out ways to get millennials into being naked all the time. So
I thought they were.
Is that not how it goes?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yesterday, very interesting story. Another city has decriminalized small amounts of marijuana. This one is in Orlando, Florida. It was a controversial measure. The mayor, Buddy Dyer, and the police chief both were supporting of decriminalizing small amounts of marijuana. It will take effect on October 1st. So as of now, What?
I just because it gives new meaning to the term Fantasyland.
Yeah, right? The happiest place on earth.
Happiest place on earth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse eating a bunch of pizza.
I can tell you from experience, Disney World High is not that much fun. It is not that much. It's kind of terrifying, frankly. Hey, and today's the day. It is Free Cone Day to participating Haagen-Dazs. Haagen-Dazs is giving away free scoops of ice cream in either a sugar or cake cones all around the country. You just got to walk in between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. Tell them that you're there for the Haagen-Dazs Free Cone Day, and you will walk away with one free ice cream. I'm just doing service journalism here.
Pretty sweet deal.
Yeah,
that is all right. But we used to have a Ben & Jerry's right next door.
Yeah.
They had free cones there. That was a great day to be living on the hill.
Yes, indeed.
People were lined up. We walk out of the studio in the morning. They'd already be lined up.
Yeah, already getting their ice cream, 9 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you, Peter.
We covered pot, we covered naked people, and we covered ice cream.
There you go.
Threw in Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Dane, we saw the latest numbers this morning nationwide. Hillary Clinton versus Trump, Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton 49, Trump 44, Bernie 53, Trump 40. That raises so many questions. But the first one is, could Trump ever win this election?
Short answer is yes, I fear, right? Look, I'm picking up polls, some of which I can discuss and not. There was a poll out of Louisiana yesterday that has Trump up on Hillary by 12 points. Her approval ratings with whites in Louisiana is 5.
Holy cow.
So, no, can he win? I don't think he will. Anyone could win anything if it's one-on-one, right?
Right.
And look, full disclosure, I love both the Democrats, but I probably love Bernie a little bit more.
Okay.
And
I'm with you. I'm with you.
And
I don't dislike Hillary, but I just like Bernie more.
Right. But so these numbers, right? Let's discuss these numbers for one very quick second. Right. Bernie has an advantage, and no one's ever gone negative on Bernie, right? So no one, to whatever degree you can on his policies, because he's a straight error otherwise, although he won't release his taxes, right? They've gone negative on Hillary for 30 years. Right?
Yeah.
So
you understand why her negatives are so high, right?
And why his aren't.
Right.
No one's ever turned a political gun on him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it would necessarily matter, but let's keep that in mind.
But it would certainly bring that number down.
It would have to.
Right.
Right.
But would he be a stronger candidate, do you believe, against Donald Trump than Hillary?
Perhaps, yes, because he has so few public flaws. Look, Bernie's not disliked by anyway. Trump seems to like him, right? Trump can't quit talking about him, right?
Yeah. He wants him to run as a third-party candidate.
Yeah. Well, that's no surprise, right? Yeah. Trump's been buddying up to Bernie now for about the last 72 hours. Mm-hmm. Now he may be going off on him at lunch today. We don't know, right? But would Bernie be a better choice? I think either of them will beat Trump. Can Trump win? Absolutely.
Here's the what I find interesting. Many things about Bernie, but the socialist label. Everybody said a socialist could never win, right? Now, it certainly has not hurt Bernie in the primaries.
No.
I mean, the fact that he doesn't have as many delegates as she does is not because he's a self-proclaimed democratic socialist, right? How about in the general? Is that what the Republicans would dig up against, call them socialist or communist or worse?
Well, they're doing that already, but I think socialist and communist has lost some of its bang from the time we were younger.
Some of its sting.
Right. Some of the sting. Well said, thank you. And I Tal said, I'm sure you guys discussed this on the show before, but I love the fact that there are all these highly religious Republicans running for president, and the Pope brings in a socialist Jew, right? Right? Which, of course, was what Jesus was, right? He was a socialist Jew, right? Exactly, yeah.
That was absolutely right.
Yeah, that was fabulous. I loved it.
The one that got the meeting with the Pope, right?
That's cool. Mm-hmm. That was very cool.
Yeah, it says a lot about the Pope and Bernie.
Yeah,
right, exactly. But they in many ways they're soulmates in terms of what they talk about. Income inequality, right?
Right.
The Pope's number one issue. It's Bernie's number one issue.
Well, it turns out now it's Trump's.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, right.
Look, very quickly on Trump. All right, so who am I describing? Raise the minimum wage, tax the wealthy, crack down on the Wall Street, rework trade agreements, speak highly of Planned Parenthood, and take swings at the GOP leadership, right? For the first time in my lifetime, there's no Republican running for president.
Well, that's what a lot of Republicans are saying today.
A whole lot. Exactly. They don't know what to do. Yeah. And it's fun to watch.
I know. So does that mean that he has already reshaped the Republican Party, or it's his party? It's his party now, isn't it?
Well, there's basically what they're doing. They're saying it's his convention. Right?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's his convention. He can do what he wants with the convention, right?
I mean, that's a little cheesy.
And you know what? I mean, party platforms, and bless all my friends in the Democratic, Shirley Franklin is helping head it, and she's a client and a friend. But it's kind of like a PhD dissertation, right? 2 people read it and it gets put on a shelf. I mean, it really doesn't matter.
The party platform.
Party platforms. Exactly.
Either party.
Either party. Yeah, absolutely. Either party.
Because nobody is bound to follow it, right?
Well, they're not. They're bound to follow the poll, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and they never do.
Ever. No, it really doesn't matter. It's a whole bunch of intellectuals gnashing their teeth.
All right, so you're, I know it's hard, but put the hat on today that says you're a Republican, and Donald Trump is, I mean, you're a senator or you're a member of Congress, and Donald Trump, or a governor, Donald Trump is your nominee. Do you support him? You know in your heart that he is totally unqualified to be president, but he's got an R after his name and is your party nominee. Like Lindsey Graham says, no way, no how. Jeb Bush, no way, no how. What would you do?
Okay, so the question was legit till you throw the moral piece into it, right? You know in your hearties, right? So if you're an ethical politician and you believe in all the structures of the Republican Party, you can't. So, but to your question, do you support him? It depends on where you are in the country, right? Because here's what we know about politicians. Their number one goal is to keep their job. Right, that's it. Keep the job.
Yeah.
And so you decide where you are. I'm doing a U.S. Senate race in Louisiana right now. I was down there last week, and all 8 candidates were on stage, and 5 of the Republicans jumped up and waved their hands. I was with Donald. I'm with Donald. They were arguing over who was Trump first. Right.
Wow. In
Louisiana, you do that. Do you do it in Massachusetts? Probably not. Right. And Baker has not. And the governor of Massachusetts has not.
Right.
So it depends on where you are.
I guess that's the right answer. Right. But Lindsey Graham in South Carolina.
Well, but Lindsey doesn't have to worry about re-election. I mean, he's kind of bigger. He's kind of bigger than that, right? But again, if you're in one of the hardcore red states, you're fine.
So what some of these people are thinking, it seems to me, is, look, we won't support Donald. We'll just let him, lose badly in 2016, and we'll come back and rebuild the party in 2020. Is that sort of the thinking of establishment Republicans?
Well, that was the thinking a week ago, and I think they're wrestling with it now, right? That was the thinking when it was just a theory.
Yeah.
But it's no longer a theory.
Yeah.
And so do they – look, the White House is just one piece of the puzzle. In fact, this West Virginia primary we can talk about in a second. There's also a Democratic primary for governor there tomorrow. That's kind of interesting. Or today, actually. Sorry. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, but do you lose the Senate and try to get it back in 4 years? That's a tougher road to hoe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'll lose the House, but you get the picture, right? So it's not just the White House. It's governor's races, it's state rep races. It's all the way down the line.
Right. So much at stake here, and people forget about the Senate and House races, too. We try to talk about it as often as we can here on the show, just to remind people. It's not just the White House, exactly. Dane Strother here with us for the whole hour as a friend of Bill. We welcome you to the conversation at 866-55-PRESS. Quick break. We'll be right back.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is the story of my grandfather. When I was 19 years old, his right hand was crushed in a printing press. He was supposed to lose the hand, but a young doctor saved it just in time for the war. This is the story of the war. My grandfather repaired tanks. Behind the front lines, away from the cameras, he would pull pieces of dead men from the machines and send the machines back out to the field. This is the story of the war a decade later. Back then, you didn't talk about depression. There was no such thing as PTSD. When my uncle, age 7, asked him who won the war, my grandfather said, nobody. This is the story of my grandfather, the machinist. I have a newspaper from 1981, a story about the Nobel Prize for Physics, a photograph of the winner, a Harvard man standing by his machines. This man is not my grandfather. Beneath the photo, my grandfather has written, I designed and built almost everything in this picture. They worked together for 10 years, but my grandmother says the physicist never even remembered his name. If you asked that Harvard man, there would be no story of my grandfather, just a pair of disembodied hands. This is the problem with stories. They have to leave something out. The editor cuts a line and someone's face fades. The editor says 200 words or less and suddenly a whole family goes missing. The spotlight isn't about the light, it's how it makes everything around it dark. My grandfather's face is erased from every story. The machines survive, but the man who made them doesn't. The machines make the photo, but their maker is out of frame. But we choose where to point the camera. We can choose how to tell the story. We can choose which clothing the hero wears. I could tell you this is a story about a soldier, or I could tell you this is a story about the blue-collar man, but really, this is just the story of my grandfather. I did not know him. I was born too late, but my family tells me his name. Alfred Franzosa. I know that name might only live in this moment, that there are other stories with greater stakes, but still, I will tell you his name. I will repair this old machine. I will let my grandfather live again because I could not know him while he was living. Once, when he was younger than I am now, his right hand was crushed by a printing press, crushed by other people's stories. When it healed, he began to build. He used his hands to build tanks and his hands to build cradles. His hands were the last thing to touch dead soldiers and the first to touch his newborn sons. He built a good family, and that family built me, and now I use my hands to build his story. The story is not a eulogy. A eulogy seals the casket. A eulogy lets no air out. This story is a resurrection. Jesus was not resurrected by God. He was brought back by the people who told his stories. It does not take a miracle to raise the dead, to leave behind the tombstone and take the name with you.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, at 26 minutes after the hour here on the Bill Press Show this Tuesday, May 10. Peter, do we have any results from West Virginia?
Not yet, sir. We're staying on the election counter here.
We're not ready to make a call.
Keep you posted. Not quite ready. A lot of numbers coming in right now, but
all right.
Nothing yet.
We do have a call from Sally out in Dane Strother here with us. Sally's from Glendale, Arizona.
Beautiful.
Hi, Sally.
Good morning.
What's up?
Do the independents get to vote in
West Virginia?
today?
Yes, they can go in and request either ballot.
Yay.
Yes.
That means Bernie can win maybe today.
I think so.
Okay, so my comment that I'm afraid might bring Hillary down is status quo. And Bernie uses that all the time, that they want to get rid of the status quo, which is what his big pull is of the millenniums and everything, because they're tired of the Bushes and the Clintons. And I assume that Donald Trump will very soon pick up that phrase from Bernie.
Yeah. Well, let me ask Dane that question. Thanks, Sally, so much. I mean, the idea of politics as usual, or the establishment, or status quo, whatever it is, I mean, a lot of people are sick of it.
Well, if you add, absolutely right. I mean, if you add Trump's vote with Bernie's vote collectively, we're getting pretty close to half, right? And people are tired of calculated answers, and they're tired of scripts, and they want real people speaking real things.
And don't they see that on both sides, the establishment just hasn't delivered anything for them in a long time?
No, you're absolutely right. And to Trump's credit, guys, he's had a populist message to a great degree, right? I mean, he's all over the map, but collectively it's populist.
It is. It's popular, as you say. Hard to believe he's a Republican. No Republican in the race.
This
Zach Ford joins
is
us
the
from
Bill
Senate
Press
American
Show.
Progress.
Most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more? How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
enough,
Enough.
enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad, as a friend, as a husband,
As a wife.
as an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been, no more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour now here. It's getting crowded around this table.
Fat joke.
Oh, no, that was not a fat joke. No, not at all.
Speak for yourself, Dave.
I represent that remark.
May I get a word edgewise here?
It is your show.
Good to have you with us this morning. Thank you for joining us. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Here with you nationwide on your local progressive talk radio station, of course, coast to coast, and also on Free Speech TV. And around the table, Peter Ogburn, of course, can't get rid of him. Dane Strother has been here for the entire hour as a friend of Bill. We're now joined by Zach Ford, who is the LGBT editor over at Think Progress. Zach, good to see you.
Good to see you. I wish it were under better circumstances.
Today, though, a good day to talk to you. Glad you could come in today because of what happened in North Carolina yesterday. So it's the deadline for North Carolina to say whether or not they're going to try to enforce this discriminatory HB2. And their response was, we're going to sue the federal government. And Loretta Lynch, Attorney General's response was, we're going to sue you back. She called it state-sanctioned discrimination, which is what it is, right?
That's what it is, yeah.
But they hide it as what? Oh, we're protecting public safety.
I now cannot hear the words common sense without going, ugh, because every single time that McCrory or any of his goons down there defend this law, they say, oh, it's a common sense law. It's a common sense law for privacy and safety. Well, it was common sense law for segregation 50 years ago, too. That was the same lingo that they used to defend it. And so I now have this trigger effect. They even in their lawsuit, they say common sense over and over again. Thomas Paine's rolling in his grave.
What happened to Jamie disappeared? I think he was tying his shoe.
Tying my shoe down there.
I thought that there was nobody there. Don't do that to us, Jamie. Loretta Lynch talked about Dane. I called you Ray, which is your dad's name.
Yeah, I'm honored you do that. Thank you.
Your dad, a wonderful, wonderful friend of mine, and was very good to me at a time when I was actually foolish enough to think about running for office.
Why would you ever want to do that?
Thank goodness you fixed that. Well, common sense isn't common, so it's good that you chose not to.
Yeah. Exactly. So here's Loretta Lynch yesterday, by the way, pointing out that what they're saying today about we need certain signs over the restrooms, to her, it's echoes of a time not so long ago.
It was not so very long ago that states, including North Carolina, had other signs above restrooms, water fountains, and on public accommodations, keeping people out based on a distinction without a difference.
That's what it is, isn't it?
Well, lunch counters are next. Yeah. Right. Bathrooms today, lunch counters tomorrow.
Well, that's what's already happening in Mississippi with their law banning or allowing any sort of discrimination against LGBT people. If you don't want to serve a same-sex couple because they're married, you don't have to. If you don't want to serve a trans person because they're trans, you don't have to. That's what that law says. So
the Mississippi law is even worse than the North Carolina law.
Well, it's not worse. It's just different. I would say that North Carolina is worse because it mandates a form of discrimination, whereas in Mississippi, discrimination was already kind of legal, and this just is a rubber stamp approving it and endorsing it.
To me, as the more and more I read about what's going on in these particularly southern states where this is happening, right? I really did think that the jury was out, the jury was in on whether or not you could deny someone service based on who they are, right? We've fought that battle. We've been through that, right?
Not at all, Peter. The Republicans in Congress are still trying to put through this First Amendment Defense Act, which does the exact same thing as the Mississippi law and says if you don't believe in same-sex marriage, you don't have to serve same-sex couples. And
it's crazy.
We take a couple steps forward and then we take a couple steps back, and this is what the backlash looks like. It's the same with abortion. We got abortion in Roe v. Wade, and then the conservatives just started chipping away at it as many different ways as they can. It's still legal, but they make it less and less accessible.
All right, so Dane, here's the question for me: what political blowback can Republicans expect because of this? It's starting in North Carolina, but not just in North Carolina, because here's the party now. And Pat McCrory is up for re-election this year. Roy Cooper's a good guy, the Attorney General of North Carolina. And so McCrory is out basically saying, we have turned the party of small government, right, into the party of the bathroom police. More government. And now they even want the federal government to rule. I mean, isn't this politically bad news for them?
If we were to begin discussing Republican irony, we won't need more than an hour, right? This is the question. But look, Republicans are very good at labeling things, right? Partial birth abortion, religious freedom, right? Unless you're Muslim. Right, yeah, well, that doesn't really count. Look, I got to tell you, the greatest thing that happened for McCrory is the Justice Department coming in after him, because look, he knows he's in a box. It's cost him several $100 million of business now with billions on the line. Mm-hmm. But he couldn't back up. If he backs up, he loses his base in this re-election. And this, at the end of the day, this is all about a re-election, right? So he actually has a gift right now that he gets to fight this thing to a certain degree.
Really?
Yeah, because he can't lose his base. That's his problem.
Right. But, it's him versus the big federal government.
And then once he loses, and I guarantee he wants to.
That's what I was going to say.
Right, he wants to lose.
Does he kind of want to lose this?
Of course he does. He can't lose. He can't lose billions of dollars for his state. He can't lose Title IX money. That's insanity, even for a Republican.
Well, it's telling that in the North Carolina's suit to the federal government, they don't even mention Title IX. So even though the Department of Justice is chasing them in education as well as employment, they're not even fighting their own fight on the education front.
Because I understand what McCrory said too. Is we want the federal government. We want that this is a national issue. He said yesterday, and basically we want the federal court to tell us kind of what to do. Again, didn't they believe in states' rights?
We've been over this, the irony thing, right? He wants someone to tell him what he has to do because he knows what the answer is going to be, because he knows what the Constitution reads, and he knows we fought this fight already, at which point PayPal et al. Can stay.
Mm. Yeah.
The problem in Mississippi, there's nobody to leave economically, right?
How many states have similar laws pending?
Well, there's a handful. A lot of them have already sort of fumbled as the state legislatures have wrapped up this year.
And a couple of governors, like Georgia, vetoed it.
Georgia vetoed it.
Yeah, Nathan Deal vetoed it after angsting about it.
Yeah. The Missouri one was going to be a constitutional amendment, but that died in the legislature. I think there's still one pending in Tennessee. There's a couple that have just been, I think there was sort of an enthusiasm when North Carolina did theirs, like, oh, we can do this too. And then they started seeing what was happening in North Carolina. It's like, oh, maybe we're not going to be so excited about this.
I was just going to ask you whether North Carolina may put a chill on some other states' efforts.
I think that's what's happening. But, like the other factor this year is that the Texas legislature is not in session. And you can see, Dan Patrick and all those other folks down there, like, just clamoring for the opportunity to jump in and be as transphobic
as Rick Perry were governor, he would call them back in special session.
But this is another example, quite honestly, of the schism within the Republican Party, right? You have the social activists and you have the business guys.
Yeah.
And here's why Nathan Deal couldn't do it. Coca-Cola, UPS, Delta Airlines, right?
Yep.
And so the Republicans are fighting themselves and eating each other. Hate to see it.
Yeah, you sound really busted up over it.
Yeah, it's such a shame.
Well, so it does beg the question, perhaps, of how strong is the religious right anymore, the evangelicals? I mean, they're behind this, right? This was done in the name of religion. That's right.
Well, technically, they don't use that language explicitly in North Carolina. They use the privacy and security kind of stuff, but at the root of it is this religious belief about who trans people are and what people should be taught about people's bodies.
Yeah, and the same-sex marriage was certainly
absolutely.
They wrap it in the Bible, right? Mm-hmm. But are they as strong a force? I mean, I guess Ted Cruz could say, obviously not. Right?
No. Look,
are they as strong a force today in the Republican Party as they were in the time of Ronald Reagan?
Oh, absolutely not. And when they decided to vote for Trump, and there's evidence that an enormous number of evangelicals voted for Trump, right? A guy who's been married 3 times supports marriage equality
and
right on down the line.
about his infidelity.
Right? Yeah. It's a badge of honor. They kind of lost all their credibility then, right? I mean, at this point, you're just a bigot. Let's just admit it.
That's putting it right on the line.
Well, exactly. This is left of center.
And so their influence has really waned, I guess, right? And I saw today, there's a headline, I think it was Huffington Post or Politico, where evangelicals are now saying, Donald Trump had better pick somebody for vice president that we support.
Oh, I'm sure that shook him up.
I'm sure he cares a lot.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that happens, though, is there's this... If you're really out and proud about how conservative and evangelical you are, then people label you a bigot, and then you claim that you're a victim, and it's all this drama, and it's not very fun. And so the people who are anti-LGBT are starting to realize the same thing that the people who are anti-black learned, and the people who are anti-woman learned, is like, we can just hold these beliefs and practice them in our own lives, and if we don't espouse them, people will leave us alone. And so I think that's what's starting to happen with the anti-LGBT conservatives is like, yeah, they still hold these beliefs, and they're really nasty and terrible stereotypes and whatever, but they're just tired of being labeled bigots and and having all this drama. So they're just gonna, stop pushing it so hard in the public space and just, abuse and kick out their own LGBT children and practice it in their church and community.
That's a terrifying point. It's so true, though. I mean, there are a few people who will go as far as Ted Cruz did, right, when he was still in the race, who was out there basically, saying these are just men dressing up as women to violate young children, right? Like
Denny Hassard.
Right.
I don't think he ever put on a dress.
Cruz would go that far and say it out in public, but not everybody will. But you could definitely, they don't disagree with him.
I must say, I think there are a lot of words that evangelicals would use to describe themselves. I'm not sure they would describe themselves as out and proud. But,
I love that too.
But I like that.
I like that too.
I like that. I caught that.
Just because they don't have to come out because there's not the same, social stigma doesn't mean they're not out and proud.
I know. I like out and proud. Yeah, the evangelicals waving the rainbow flag too.
Some of them are even trying to reclaim the rainbow. They don't like that it's an LGBT symbol. Oh yeah, right? they're out there. They're silly.
All right, here we go. We got the whole crowd here: Peter Ogburn, Dane Strother, and Zach Ford. And you jump in anytime. 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
It occurred to me tonight, for the first time, that the long-winged insect that over and over again rams its body into the wood of my front door might not know what he's doing. He might not have a plan. Maybe that's just how he flies, and that is where the door is. And I remember you. The last time I saw you, a few weeks before we would graduate from high school, and a few days before you let a bullet dissolve on your tongue, dancing in a warehouse rave, sweat-drenched and strobe light battered, thrashing your arms back and thrusting them forward. The floor could get so bright and loud, we all slowed down to be more careful, but you kept dancing full sprint tornado, and sometimes you'd spin full weight into a wall and just spread your arms against it and sway back and forth like a lover reunited. This long-winged insect is not trying to get into the house. It doesn't know there is a house. Can't imagine a life beyond that door. All it can see is the light. You and I were both 17 when you died. And ever since then, I have envied you. How you are remembered for towering, unclaimed potential instead of living to look regret in the face. You didn't have to come home 3 weeks later and explain to your little brother why you took too much medicine. Your addiction is remembered as a tragedy, not a betrayal. Your suicide attempt became a suicide, not an unpaid hospital bill. And only tonight did it occur to me that maybe that night when you let your teeth touch metal, you might not have known what you were doing. You might not have had a plan. Maybe you had hit that door so many times you couldn't imagine it might let you through. I'm still ashamed to admit it, but I have always secretly believed you did it for me, that you wanted to show me that there is a way out of all of this. Not so that I would follow you, but so I would understand that every day that I am alive is a day that I choose to be alive. And when the music stops, you still get to keep on dancing. And when the light is so bright it blinds, you can dance with your eyes closed. And if in that dark you come up against a wall, you keep your arms out wide and you dance with the wall.
Here we go back now at 12 minutes before the top of the hour. Here with our team. This is big enough we have to call it a panel.
Yeah, wow.
That's official. That's
wow.
official.
I'm into the CNN mode now.
Let me grab my sport coat.
Yeah, right.
The panel.
We're paneling.
Yeah, right.
Let me get my platitudes.
Zach Ford, who's the LGBT editor at Think Progress. Dane Strother, if you are running for election as a Democrat, this is the man you need on your side, Democratic strategist. And, of course, Peter Ogburn. Here
Hello,
as
panel.
always. Hello, panel. I can't wait to get back to, I'm sorry, Zach, I think we've butchered up Pat McCrory as best we can in North Carolina. On this whole Democratic primary that we're in the middle of. So, Dane, is Hillary the nominee?
Oh, Hillary is the nominee. Yes, and we need to. Some people need to come to terms with that, and we need to play a little bit nicer in the sandbox, because when Trump begins using Bernie's words against Hillary, we got a problem.
Right.
And it is what it is.
The thing that drives me crazy is Trump is trying to identify himself with Bernie to appeal to Bernie's supporters. They're really not the same person, are they?
You know what's interesting is my friends in the press.
How do you counteract that?
Yeah, well, my friends in the press told me that in New Hampshire, the same people are swinging between the Bernie rallies and the Trump rallies, right? So it's these people who are simply tired of the establishment. And I'm not saying that Bernie's voters are going to go for Trump, right? But there are some similarities in a strange way.
Right.
It's almost like our political schemas are all awry, that we normally think, oh, if you're socially conservative and fiscally conservative, you're on this side, and if you're liberal on those parts, you're on this side. And now we have this other sort of division where there's just all this upending of the status quo that people want to do, and nobody's really fitting in any molds anymore.
But, I mean, clearly they do appeal to the same disaffected populace, right? People who feel they have been left behind, left out of the equation by the party establishment of both parties. But they certainly have different solutions and take people in different directions. And I would say one's for real and one is totally phony, right? And Bernie's got some real solutions, real ideas. He's thought them through for some 40 years. And Trump, just who knows, right?
Day to day.
Day to day.
Day to day. Yeah. Wait for another day.
Right. Will there be, I get this question all the time, will the party be united in November?
The Democratic Party?
Yeah.
Oh, I think absolutely. I mean, look at the alternative, and that's what they're saying on their side. They're polar opposites. Here's the problem that the other side has, is that Hillary is Hillary, and she's going to be the same person next week she was last week, she was 2 years before, right? Again, Trump is for raising the minimum wage, taxing the wealthy, cracking down on Wall Street, reworking trade agreements, taking swings at the GOP leadership, right? They don't really have a place to go.
Mm-hmm. But here's the deal. We also have two candidates whose negatives are.
It's amazing.
Almost. I mean, last I looked at, Trump is about 70% disapproval, and Hillary about 60% disapproval. So.
Well, and maybe Dan, you know the answer to this, but is there any politician that people get excited about anymore? I mean, I feel like there's
Bernie.
But. I mean, Bernie's got this idea of the revolution behind him, but I think that there's just so much disaffection for politicians in general. What does likability mean? Maybe 60% negative is doing pretty good for a politician. You know what I mean? How do we assess that number?
It's a great
President
question.
Obama has about a 50% approval, I believe, right?
It's the highest it's been in a while, I think.
Yeah, highest it's been in a while.
Because he's the coolest president ever. And I'm missing him already.
I know. Right? No, I know. I had that.
Listen, I'm loving him more than ever because he's actually being himself.
Well, we're about to lose him, like a kid going off to college. You forget to wreck the car.
But it does. but it does seem to me that let's say it's Trump and Hillary with his high disapproval rating, so Trump is not so much as going to try to sell himself as he is run anti-Hillary, and Hillary maybe not try to sell herself so much as it is anti-Trump. And that's going to be a pretty negative campaign, isn't it?
Oh, it's going to be brutal. I mean, I don't want to tout myself, but I'm writing a book, The History of Negative Campaigns, which has never been written before, and I can't finish until December for obvious reasons because this is going to be the biggest.
This is your big finale. Yeah, you were looking at it.
Yeah, look, they cut off Cicero's hands and head and put it on the dais of the Senate. I'll grant you that, but verbally they're going to do worse here. This is going to be brutal.
Yeah.
Although, is there any candidate that Trump would run against that wouldn't be a negative campaign?
No.
Right.
No.
So, like,
No.
Yeah.
We're more motivated by fear and anger than we are love and hope. And we know that.
So you have a book coming out on negative campaigning?
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that.
Wait a minute. I'm just going to say, this is going to be chapter 1. I would hope.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
All right. Yeah, it's so great to see you guys. Right, Zach. Thanks for coming back here.
Of course.
All right. And we know Loretta Lynch is going to. She's going to win this battle.
Oh, absolutely. It's not even a fair
what
fight.
fun. Great to see you. Come back again
Love to
soon.
be here.
All right. We love Redneck Radio.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
All right. I'll be back with the party shop.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
A letter to the girl I used to be. Dear Emily, every time I watch baseball, a voice I no longer recognize whispers, Ethan, do you remember? When you were going to be the first girl to play in the Major League Seattle Mariners rally cap. But to be honest, Emily, I don't. Dad told me that like it was someone else's bedtime story. But I do know you had that drive. Didn't let anyone tell you to wear shorts above your knees. Didn't care if boys thought your hair fell on your shoulders just right, but with girls, sleepovers meant the space between your shoulder and hers was a 6-inch fatal territory. The year you turned 11 was the first time you said out loud that you didn't want to live anymore. In therapy, you said you wouldn't make it to 21. On my 21st birthday, I thought about you. You were right. At 19, you started to fade. I tried to cross you out like a line in my memoir I wished I could erase completely. And maybe I'm misunderstanding the definition of death, but even though parts of you still exist, you are not here. Most of my friends have never heard your name until now. I've been trying to write this letter for 6 months. I still can't decide if it should be an apology or not. But now you will never hear Emily Smith announced at a college graduation. Get married. Give birth. When the prescribed testosterone started taking effect, my body stopped producing the potential for new life every month. I thought about your children, how I wanted them too. I let a doctor remove your breasts so that I could stand up straighter. Now, even if I somehow had those children, I wouldn't be able to nourish them. My body is obsolete, scarred cosmetic, but never C-section. I was 4 days late. They will never be grandparents. I was 1 week late. They will never hold their lover's sleeping figure. I was 11 days late. They will never breathe in a sunset and a sunrise in the same night. I was 2 weeks late. They will never learn to jump rope. I was 3 weeks late. They will never shout, "Watch, Mommy, watch me on the slide." I was 2 months late. A piece of us will never wrap their arms around our leg for comfort, but just to keep them from falling down. And I am sorry that this process is so slow, and all you can do is wonder if you ever had a place. You did. You still do. Don't forget that. Yours, Ethan. P.S. I never hated you.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is The Bill Press Show.
Well, round one in the war for leadership of the Republican Party, Donald Trump versus Paul Ryan. Yep, no sooner had Trump won the nomination than Ryan declared he was not willing to endorse him. Trump refused to back down, saying if Ryan didn't like where Trump was on the issues, maybe he'd find somebody else to be head of the Republican National Convention in Cleveland, at which point Ryan backed down, promising to step aside if the Donald wanted him to. Weak, as Donald would say. You know, it's no surprise the two men clashed. They are on opposite sides of a lot of issues, including the TPP, banning Muslims from entering the country, new relations with Cuba, deporting 12 million immigrants, even cutting Social Security benefits. It's unlikely the two will ever get together, but for round one in the war for leadership of the GOP, Donald Trump versus Paul Ryan, Donald Trump wins. My parting shot for today, Peter here is a friend of Bill. Tomorrow
This is the Bill
see you
Press
then.
Show.